Because of the following special program, Mr. Merlin will not be presented this evening.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's time again for another Word Balloon Live, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress with you. Always happy to welcome a fellow Chicagoan and a fantastic creator, COWL Higgins, back to Word Balloon. Good to see you, man.
Nice to see you as well. You also forgive me. I'm literally, I just realized, I was like, I didn't post about, I didn't realize we were going live tonight, thought we were recording. So hold on. I'm going to actually fire off a post real quick.
Oh, please do. That's
going
all right.
Live right now on, does Word Balloon have an account on Twitter? John?
Yes,
really
John Word
Twitter
Balloon.
anymore,
John Word Balloon. And also Blue Sky and Facebook, of course. And
Word Balloon.
so we're all over the place. And in fact, we already have a comment. And Jamzilla is excited for this. Well, so am I, Jamzilla. I appreciate that, man.
I love the name Jamzilla. I'm a fan.
Well, of course you are. Kyle, right off the bat, because Radiant Black is inspired by Ultraman, the Power Rangers, all that stuff. What is the Japanese term for this type of hero?
Oh, well, this would be like, we call it like tokusatsu.
Yes, tokusatsu. Yes, indeed.
As far as a genre goes, but as far as this type of hero within the genre, I would say it's actually like it's the transforming hero archetype. Yeah, I mean, we're in that kind of Ultraman, Kamen Rider, Super Sentai space where it's, the normal made extraordinary is the way I like to think of it. So yeah, there we go. Let's see.
Well, Jamzilla, obviously a friend of both Word Balloon and the Radiant Black, the Masive universe. And no, this is great, man. I know, I am curious about, not only because we're going to discuss the reboot, or I shouldn't say reboot, as it's called, coming up in about 6 weeks.
Rebuild.
Yes, Radiant Black Rebuild is coming to Image, and that's great. It's a great jump beyond point. You also released, or at least I got the Image PDF. There was like kind of a recap of the first 6 volumes, like a 16-page kind of thing, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And is that
so? Mm-hmm. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask: is that a regularly priced comic? Is it lower priced or whatever? What is? And it's I assume, is it out now?
Yeah. Well, here's the best thing. It's out now. It's for free. So we made it and dropped it as a total surprise to comic book stores. And the reason behind it was ultimately like we tried something really, really ambitious last year with the book, with Radiant Black. I mean, honestly, a lot of the things in the Masiveverse are creator-owned superhero universe at Image that we'll, I'm sure, talk about more tonight. But we tried some really, really ambitious things, and we had a lot of delays last year, both because of the scope of what we were doing, and also there was some life stuff going on, and someone between a divorce and my 6th knee surgery in 6 years, another cartilage transplant, like there's a lot going on, and we really wanted to make sure we were sticking the landing with everything, but we fell a bit behind. And so, considering how outside the box the event we did last year, the Catalyst War, was, I know it was tricky for some readers and retailers to kind of keep on top of what exactly was happening, because we were basically putting out 2 different issues at the same time, continuing exploring two diverging timelines at once. And so there was a 25, and then had a secret ending under the variant cover, and then we announced that issue 26 was actually going to also have a 0.5 issue, and that 0.5 issue was a different universe or different timeline. 27 and 27.5, two different timelines, right? And so we wanted to make it really easy for not only retailers and existing readers who may have missed some things, but also potentially new readers to get caught up and see, okay, this is what has happened over the last 4 years. We basically took 600 pages of comics, and huge shout out to Michael Basudel, who is my right hand on all this stuff, and he's the editor and designer on all of our books that we do, not only in the Massiveverse, but with my own little company, Black Market Narrative. We're a little creative collective studio, we like to describe ourselves as. Michael was able to take 600 pages worth of story and basically build out a down to the studs. Here it is across essentially 12 pages, using existing art and new narration to walk you readers through. This is what happened. These are the big things you need to know as we are now entering into the next era of not only Radiant Black, but the Massiveverse, what we're calling our rebuild era, which we can talk about that name in a little bit. And so we put that out, like I said, as a surprise. Stores got packets of 10 for free. We also put it up online. If you go to radiant.black/ketchup, CATCHUP, not the condiment, you can actually read the whole thing right there for free. It's through our Black Market newsletter. And we're also running a cool sale right now on all 6 volumes of Radiant Black, 15% off right now through issue 31's on sale week. And if you are not subscribed to Black Market, our Black Market newsletter, when you subscribe, we email you a one-time 10% off code, and it's stackable. So if you were to go want to catch up on Radiant Black and you subscribe to the newsletter, if you haven't already subscribed, you subscribe now, it ends up being 25% off on all the books right now for Radiant Black. So like, again, just trying to make it as accessible as possible in a really challenging market, because we're committed, we're here to stay, and not only do we love the direct market, but we love long-running comic book series and especially long-running superhero comic book series, and more. I know one of the challenges with the market right now is it feels like I hear from a lot of retailers that there's a lot of really short form stuff. There's a lot of mini series. There's a lot of like, a book that sounded cool. It only ends up doing 6 issues. And so we're up to like issue 31 in numbering, but with the double ship, we're really up to like 36 on Radiant Black, and then Rogue Sun's coming back in March with a new jumping on point with issue 25. So we're already, we're several years into this now. So yeah.
That's excellent, man. Here's some more comments from the Peanut Gallery. Matthew Novak says, really excited for Radiant Black to come back. It's the first ongoing series I ever added to my pull list. Our buddy Joe Illage is back, and he says long-running series are the best path forward. Agreed. So, again, Rebuild is coming at the end of February, Radiant Black Rebuild. Is that an issue 1, or is that issue 31 or 32? What's the deal here?
So that's actually, it's issue 31. We're not going to renumber or anything like that.
Okay.
But we're calling it like our Rebuild era. I mean, in some ways it's like, remember when Invincible came back and it was like Invincible Returns. We haven't been gone that long, so it's not really a full return, but we are, we really want to message that it's something that it's both integral to what the story is about, but it's also from a meta standpoint, it's really about us, like, we're back on track. Like, we've been banking issues for the last, 6 months here. And the core titles, Radiant Black and Rogue Sun, are back on time monthly. And then we also have, like, we finished No One, which I would love to talk about in a little bit too.
Absolutely.
And we're like entering into the phase now. Brian Buccellato and I are writing the film because we announced at San Diego Comic-Con as a surprise that the story of In No One, which is already a multimedia true crime superhero mystery, the story is actually continuing in a found footage documentary, superhero documentary that's being produced by Steven Schneider, who did Paranormal Activity and the Insidious films and Late Night with the Devil, so very much in that found footage horror space. This is kind of a fake documentary. The intention is that everyone who voiced the characters on the in-universe audio series will play them in front of camera, so it both adapts the events of the comic and audio series and the websites and everything we did, and it continues the story. So it's like one big multi-narrative. So we're working on that now, which will be like kind of a really big, knock on wood, general awareness swing for the line. And then we have a big audiobook coming up we're working on right now for Radiant Black with Will Friedle and Ryder Strong and Troy Baker, all voicing characters. It's a full voice cast. So that's really when we say rebuild, it's like, okay, it's technically year 5, which blows my mind entering into this. But we're back and we're reloaded. So I guess reload would have been a good, we could have used that too. Radiant Black Reloaded. I don't know. Yeah.
I respect that. No. Kyle, like I said before we got started, I remember you telling me all this stuff. And again, I knew your history with Power Rangers. I knew your history with Ultraman and everything. So I'm like, okay, yeah, it's like Kyle gets, you get this genre. What is it about? And really, Radiant Black is absolutely its own story. And truly, as I've seen others say as well, for people to jump in, this is something that, like, if Invincible really hit you as something new and novel, that is what Radiant Black will feel like to you if you are just jumping in now at this point. But what was it about the Tetsatsu ideas that inspired you to go in this direction?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fewfold. I was aware of Japanese tokusatsu as a medium, or really as a genre. I was passingly aware of it over the years. Like, I don't know that you can write superhero comics for a living and not be aware of something like that. But I wasn't versed in it much at all before I got Power Rangers. And so I was writing the main Mighty Morphin Power Rangers book at Boom Studios. I did the first 3 years of that book and built out a lot of the creative and where like the line ended up kind of going. Really proud of that stuff. During that time, I met 2 wonderful Australians, Matt Groom and Michael Basudel, who actually run a Power Ranger podcast where they watch and then talk about how crazy the episodes are. They've done it for 10 years now, and they have never missed a weekly release.
That's great. Yeah, there you go.
So I started doing, I just really liked the guys, and they were really funny and had a really, I didn't know anything about the fan base or the fandom when I started the book. And so after talking with them, I'd always loved the idea of like doing a kind of like a director's commentary style breakdown on a monthly book that, if I was writing. And so I proposed, like, would you guys want to do this kind of on a regular basis? And so they were into it. And so we recorded together for several years. And that then turned into kind of deeper, not only friendships, but working relationships. And, Matt writes Inferno Girl Red. He and I co-write Ultraman at Marvel. He's written on the Power Ranger comics now. We've done stuff at DC together. We've actually, Marvel is kind of, they've announced it. We're doing a big Spider-Verse Venomverse event right now. It's weird. Like, they announced like the prequel story, I think, or the tie-in stuff that Matt's running ahead of it. But then they also announced we're doing a thing. I imagine there's probably a bigger press release. They announced that we're doing the event. There's probably a bigger press release and covers and stuff, I think, coming this month.
Okay.
But anyway, while we were starting to work on stuff together, it was really them. It was those 2 guys that kind of really turned me on to Super Sentai. And then it was Tom Brevoort who turned me on to Kamen Rider. In particular, the season Kamen Rider build is like a really great, access point. And I think my writing changed quite a bit as I was doing Power Rangers. I mean, I was, getting older, but also I think I became much more comfortable. I became much more comfortable writing with optimism, I guess. And so there was something about telling stories in the way that we were telling them and what I was seeing in Tokusatsu that really was speaking to me as a fan again. I haven't been a fan of a lot of the stuff that I grew up loving for a long time. And that's just kind of one of the things that happens when you start doing it professionally and it becomes your job and your career. Is it's the price of admission, is you give up your fandom to some extent. And so just finding that stuff again and the way that they approach storytelling and how kind of spiritual and soulful things can be and how just batshit insane things can be as well in their stories was what really spoke to me. And then, coincidentally, I was already planning what would become Radiant Black in a different form. And then kind of two things happened back to back. One was Tom Brevoort, who was actually my very first editor. My very first comic book I ever wrote, along with Lauren Sankovic, was some issues of Captain America. Tom reached out asking if I'd ever have any interest in Ultraman, because he had read my Power Ranger stuff, but also felt like I kind of got more of the genre than just beyond just Power Rangers. And I said I definitely would be interested, but I really wanted to do it with Matt. And so that's when Matt and I started building that out. And so that started happening. And then I was planning this kind of like dystopian, kind of like post-tech dystopia series that was originally going to be kind of like a digital series potentially, when we thought like people might still make those. And then I decided to start trying to do something with it more in comics. And it was like, it wasn't a Power Ranger or Sentai or anything like that, but it was riffing off the idea of like however many hundreds of years in the future after the world's been saved, and the people who saved it are then why it became ruined in this new way that it is. And it was kind of like these like, these little fiefdom cities that were like, it's kind of like a Blade Runner meets Mad Max kind of hybrid from a world standpoint.
Got it.
And I was just going to do it as like a 6-issue creator-owned thing at Image. And the only two things that have any similarity to Radiant Black were that I wanted basically the source of the kind of like the transformation and the powers to be like from a miniature black hole. And I had the title, I knew it was going to be called Irradiant. And so I had the title Radiant Black. And I just really liked that title. And over the years at different points, I'm not always great at naming things. I've gotten better, I think. But I was like, oh, that's a good title. Like I like that. Yeah. And so after New York Comic Con in 2019, Eric Stevenson and I were texting, and he said, oh, by the way, have I ever brought up to you like the idea of like building an original superhero series? And I was like, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, not like a Batman or Superman analog, but like something new, something original. Like think of it as optimistic sci-fi if you want, if that's easier to kind of like calibrate. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, well, I would kill to do something like that, but I never figured there would be a market for that. And he said, well, I think there could be, and kind of walked me through like what Spawn was doing at that time, especially numbers wise. And so, and he told me, he was like, if anyone else comes to mind who you think would be a good fit, feel free to let him know. So my first call was to Ryan Parrott, and 3 days later he pitched me basically Rogue Sun kind of in its fully formed state. And I said to Eric as well, I said, I've got that thing that I was going to do, in the future, or like this, the Radiant Black thing. I was like, suddenly it just kind of like all clicked for me. I'd been working on a pitch for DC as well, where it involved a character ending up. My take was the only thing that's relevant was like I wanted to basically was going to open with like a millennial in Gotham City getting laid off from like Wayne Corp and having to move back in with his parents in the Gotham suburbs. And I ended up not even pitching the book properly because like what the book was then going to be and become, I just kind of, it wasn't something I wanted to really write at that time. But there was something about that really spoke to me, especially just with, you know, I have friends who have moved back home. I've left LA at one point, didn't have to move back home, but stayed back in Chicago, back in my hometown for a couple months. And so it was like that combined with the name and the iconography of Radiant Black. And I said to Eric, I was like, I think I could do that. I think I could do this as like a very right now series, exploring a lot of the things and the fears that I don't really see in other comics, as well as in particular superhero comics.
Yes.
So the way that I joke, if people like Power Rangers, I tell them, I like to say that Radiant Black is like Power Rangers with adult problems. But the non-Power Ranger centric description is that it's a very contemporary superhero series about two disillusioned millennials navigating failed dreams and credit card debt with the help of miniature black holes and existential robots, you know. So it's definitely a hybrid of a lot of things I love and influences and fears. And so then it became like Ultraman, from Power Rangers to Ultraman, and then the aesthetic influence of Tokusatsu with Radiant Black felt like this is a really nice pattern, especially to establish with retailers and readers. And, you know, I like to joke that the only difference between a pigeonhole and a brand is if you're making enough money. I felt like this worked. And then I also like the meta sense of like exploring these kind of like these problems that are very specific to millennials right now through the aesthetic lens of our childhood. You know, all of us grew up on Power Rangers. And so now these are characters in their 30s trying to figure out how things didn't work out and where things went wrong, not only in their lives, but in the world, and kind of like being sold a little bit of a bill of goods in the 90s as we were growing up, and now just trying to find our own way. So.
No, I get it, man. And honestly, that is one of the main things, the real Earth problems of Marshall and Marshall and Nathan, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure. All right, good deal. Did a lot of cramming for this. I won't deny it, man. But it's good. And what I really love is it just like Peter Parker in 1962 represented the modern problems of the moment.
Yeah.
This represents the modern problems, as you say, of the millennials. It's very much from a civilian standpoint, what a reader can relate to. And it is that whole post-college or even initial post-college success of, hey, I got in my field. Great, you're fired. Well, now what do I do? And hey, man, we even, I'll admit, even in the late 80s, early 90s faced the same kind of challenges and stuff. You know, got a pro radio job while I was in school, got fired, had to come home, had to work at a bank and Blockbuster, 3 different jobs to make ends meet while I'm trying to get back into radio and stuff. So no, I've lived that civilian life. I totally get it. And I can totally relate to today's millennial issues, but also the fact that you use and some of the fun, forgive the word gimmick, but the different little things that both you put in the stories themselves and, but also using QR codes to lead to secret audio files and secret visual files and everything else. That's great. I told you in the email, I was grocery shopping last weekend, and my buddy from the Score, Dan Bernstein, I ran into him. We live in the same area. Yeah. And he's like, hey, man, Kyle Higgins was just on Lawrence Holmes' show. And he goes, wow, I was really blown away by, and I don't know if Lawrence showed him the comics and everything, but, you know, he knew about all the different QR codes that you put in the books. And, okay, now, you know, here's a secret code, and now it leads to X, and it leads to Y. And he goes, that's really great. And I'm like, yeah, well, Higgins has been telling me about this stuff for the last couple of years, and I'm thrilled that everything's working out. So no, man, the word is getting out there, man, beyond the Wednesday Warriors.
Well, that's very sweet to hear, especially from Dan. Yeah, that's a funny little, very Chicago specific anecdote from the last couple weeks. Basically, for those who don't know, Lawrence Holmes is a big sports radio host on 670 The Score in Chicago. Lawrence and I have been friends for years. Similar to me and John, like there's a sports Chicago, not only a Chicago background, but a Chicago sports background and a love of comic books. And so Lawrence actually joined us on Radiant Black for issue 18, where we told the origin of Radiant Yellow. And Radiant Yellow has our favorite powers. All the miniature black holes have different traits from black holes. All the Radiants have different, each color has a different trait from a black hole. And so like Radiant Black can manipulate gravity, Radiant Red can absorb and transmute matter and create like mecha armor and stuff like that. Pink can create portals, and Yellow can perceive all the different branching points in his life and place his consciousness anywhere. So he can perceive out forwards and backwards, like what could have been and what might be. And so we decided to tell his origin as 4 eras of his life all at once. Separated by 18 years for each one for issue 18. I've actually got, I have this stuff like kind of always accessible here. Tell you what, let me show you this real quick, because I think anyone who's watching this on YouTube will.
While you're doing that, I want to acknowledge a couple other comments. And Project Nusis says, "What's up?" Got here through X from Kyle's page. He just subscribed. And Zero Zaku 1 wants to know what your favorite Kamen Rider Sentai series was.
Oh, yeah. We can talk about that. Also, I want to say real quick, because I missed it before, if he's still watching, I wanted to say hi to Joe Illage. Joe and I have still never actually met in person. We've been in the same room together, Joe, because I think we were both at the Eisners last year, because one of my friends pointed you out, and I was like, oh, that's Joseph Illich. Oh, okay. But we didn't actually communicate. But one day we will actually meet in person.
That's exactly how I first met Joe face to face. Was at an Eisner's. He knew me. I knew him. We immediately hugged, and it's like, all right, man. Now we know each other. Let's start talking. And we started doing podcasting. So I get it.
Totally.
Yeah. Great guy. He's killing it on. He's killing it on Shadow Cabinet. Everybody for Milestone right now. Great series if you're not reading it. So a little shout out to Joe creatively as well.
Oh, awesome. The question about my favorite Kamen Rider series. I mean, Kamen Rider Build is probably my favorite still. It was my first like real entry point where I then watched all, what was it? It's like 50 or 60 episodes. And it's just such a strong series. Kamen Rider Gaim, or Game, I'm not sure how you say it. I love that one as well. 01, I mean, the classic, like the original stuff. And, the irony is like the Radiant Black characters look a lot like Sentai, like Super Sentai characters, but they're much more like Kamen Riders. They're all individual operators. And like, the book, the two best friends, Nathan and Marshall, the book really is kind of like a secret two-hander between them where the powers trade off. And like Kamen Rider is the show that introduced the idea, like the secondary rider as an archetype. And it came out of necessity because the very first Kamen Rider, that actor broke, I believe, like both his legs. And so they had to bring in someone else as a new character to take over the mantle, and then the original actor healed up and was able to come back later in the season's run, and so now you have two of them, and that actually becomes an archetype over the years. And so we're kind of, in some ways, we're kind of riffing on that when you step back and think about Radiant Black. But
sure,
but yeah. Here, I was gonna say, I don't know if you can add this to the stream, yeah. John.
That's all right, buddy. What do you got? Oh, are you trying to share? Hold on. Oh, I got it. All right, stand by. Here it is, everybody. All right, I'm going to take the comment down. There we go.
There we go. So issue 18 of Radiant Black. So it was 4 eras of Wendell's life all at once, each one separated by 18 years. So 1984, 2002, 2020, and 2038. And the whole book is done like that. So it's done basically as double page spreads, as timelines, right?
Wow.
and you read it as those page turns and everything. And you're reading the top row, then the middle row, then the second to last row, and then the bottom row. And it goes through like the whole issue like that, right?
That's great.
So we did another thing, which is an even more kind of crazy version. I think I broke Lawrence a little bit when I pitched it, and then he was chill about it when I said it on a call, and then he messaged me later. He's like, I don't know how the heck we're gonna do that, but I was like, I think I can see it. I think we can pull it off. Basically, what we did was this. It was a really complicated thing to write because it really well, you'll see here. Let me see if it'll let me load it.
All right, buddy. All right, here comes everyone. Boom. Wow, look at that. That's all right. For people in the audio, the story is kind of in an accordion sort of progression, and it folds out in that way that you would stretch out an accordion. So and that's the video too. That's COWL show.
It's the most expensive print job I've ever been a part of because it's hand assembled. We only made I want to say like 200 copies of it.
Okay.
And so the idea is that you could actually, so the whole book accordion folds out, and so the first 12 pages are on one side as one long, like almost like 4 foot or 5 foot piece of paper, and then you flip it over, and that's the back 12 pages of the issue, or maybe it's longer. It might have been.
I bet your printer hated you.
Yeah,
I bet your printer really hated you.
They dug it. No one had done it really in the U.S. And so what's cool about it though is that it actually changes the story, because if you decide to read one era in its entirety across that entire strip, like a time, again, his powers are timeline based. So so the representation across something that feels like a timeline felt really apt. And when he uses like energy blast powers, they all kind of they're streaky like timelines. We design them that way. But it changes the story, because if you read each era on its own, not as page turns, you're learning information at different points in the story than you would on the page turn version.
Wow.
So it plays with the narrative structure and the narrative kind of experience of it all. So like that's the stuff that I love. And so to your point, to loop it all back around, so Lawrence and I have stayed in touch, of course. And while my girlfriend Kelly and I were in Chicago over Christmas, and somehow I found the one Australian who loves American football but roots for the Green Bay Packers. And so she humored me, and we went to a Bears game. We went to the Bears-Seahawks game. It was either the Bears-Seahawks game or the Bears-Lions game, and I felt like, well, they're both going to be awful, but at least the Seahawks game is at night at Soldier Field. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And so the day after the game, I mean, this was the game where, like, the stadium, and I'm not going to confirm nor deny if I was a part of the chant, started chanting "Sell the team," which became a big thing on sports radio, which I wasn't aware of.
Oh, yeah, it's all over the place.
But I want to say publicly for the record, I was there. There were a lot of Seahawks fans that were starting that chant as like a false flag. Like, I'm not making that up. Like, that was the thing that was happening. So anyway, so the day after the game, Lawrence texts me and he's like, did you go to that game? Did you seriously go to that? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, why would you do that to yourself? And I told him the same thing about Kelly. And I said, she's never seen bad football, so I felt like she needed to see it in person. So then we decided to, like, we're going to go into the city a few days later, and he's like, come by the Score and everything. And he's like, I'll give you a tour. And so a few hours after we're texting, family friend texts my mom, oh, they're talking about Kyle on the Score. Lawrence completely threw me under the bus on air. And so then a few days later, when we got into the city, Lawrence walked us through the studio, and we met Dan Bernstein, who I've listened to for years, with going back to Boers and Bernstein.
Of course.
And he was actually very aware of Radiant Black and Patton and No One and everything. And so I had gotten a couple books. I brought a couple books for Lawrence. I brought a copy of No One and Moon Man. and I'd forgotten them in my car, and we were just parked at Grant Park. And so we left and then popped into Challengers in the Loop, or not Challengers, Graham Crackers, Graham Cracker Comics in the Loop.
Yeah, a couple blocks away, absolutely.
And they had an extra copy of the new No One trade, so I bought that and I signed it for Dan, longtime listener. Thanks for all the years and everything. And so I assume Lawrence gave it to him, and that's what he's referencing, but I have no confirmation of that.
Well, I'm confirming now because yes, he was thrilled. And it's funny, both Lawrence and Dan, I worked with them for years, and this shows you the difference in eras. This was the 90s when all us comic fans, we weren't ashamed, and especially but being in a sports setting, you know, do you immediately want to be beaten up by Ogre from Revenge of the Nerds? Nerd, you know, I mean, immediately. Well, those days, and in fact, my next job in sports radio after the Score was at Sporting News Radio, and by then I was in my early 40s, and we had an engineer who was also around my age, and he's like, "Oh, did you get your little comic book today?" The great thing was, first of all, my immediate manager was also a comic book fan, and we bonded immediately. And I worked from 4 p.m. till midnight, and so I would go to the comic shop on New Comic Book Day, and I'd bring him in because he'd tell me, he's like, "Hey, bring in your new books. I always want to see what's going on." I'm like, "Okay." He had a cable, like 3-inch PVC character on his desk. And in my interview with him, he immediately I'm like, "Oh man, an X-Men." And he goes, "Oh, you're a comic book fan." Well, again, this was the early 2000s. In the 90s, we didn't talk about that stuff. Now it's like, oh my God. And really, Bernstein has always been a big supporter of Word Balloon and really loves what I'm doing and everything.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, which is very sweet. But no, it was so funny. It's like, well, why were we talking about this shit in the 90s when we all were working together and stuff? It's a shame. But thankfully, it's a different world right now. We won. The nerds won. And nobody, as Milo Ventimiglia says to Stallone in Rocky Balboa, the 6th movie, he's like, everybody thought this was a joke. Nobody's laughing anymore. And it's like, you're goddamn right. Nobody's laughing anymore. So
I tell people that all the time. Like, if half of the material existed from a film and TV standpoint that exists now, when back in the early 90s and in the 90s when I was growing up, like, my life would have been very different.
I hear you.
But we had, and you had even less. I mean, you had some, but you had the 70s shows. You had.
Yeah, well, yes, but, there were, and the Hulk made it 5
I was so starved, John, I was so starved for superhero content that I was binging reruns of The Incredible Hulk, the Bixby Incredible Hulk, and Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man, and everything else. I was setting my Betamax VCR and my VHS VCR. I don't know why we had both, but we did.
Cool.
To record the Sci-Fi Channel all hours of the day. Anytime I saw on TV Guide, that was a thing that existed. People, it was printed. Any rerun of these shows,
sure.
Just because there was nothing like it out there, like we have now, and
Reb Brown,
and for worse, but
Reb Brown, Captain America from those 70s movies and stuff,
with the clear shield,
yes,
and like
the plexiglass shield,
helmet,
and his bad Evil Knievel looking first costume. Thank God they give him the better costume in the second movie. But I met him at Terrificon a couple summers ago and totally gushed, and I'm like, dude. I go, you were so underserved because you really should have been a 5-season like Bixby's Hulk kind of guy, because there was no one else that could play Captain America but you in the 70s. And he hugged me. And I understood, because I'm like, hey man, you were great. You are underserved by bad writing, but you were great.
I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan of the films, and I was in a green room with Jonathan Rhys Davies.
Yes,
right? That's and I didn't actually end up talking to him, but I wanted to talk to him about the Daredevil Incredible Hulk. It is the Daredevil Incredible Hulk movie, because he plays
Rex
the Kingpin in that,
right?
And he narrates Quest for Glory 4, which I grew up playing. Shout out old Sierra games, but. Yeah, I'm with you, John. Like, that stuff is it's entrenched up here.
That's all we had. No, I totally understand. Listen here, there's so many comments. I want to acknowledge them. Gemzilla says there was a moment in the Ultraman Avengers crossover where Captain America is annoyed with Spider-Man being there, but then backtracks and says something really kind. I appreciated that moment. And then,
thank you.
So
that's
very.
We gotta give Matt Groom a lot of credit on the Avengers Ultraman story. Matt's done a lot of the heavy lift on that, and it's been a blast to do it together. But there's no way I could do this event without Matt.
That's cool. Let's see here. That one Tim. All right, all in one word. Sorry, man. Kind of an eye chart to read it all together. Fellow millennial here, who was your favorite Power Ranger when you were playing with friends? I would typically go with the Black Ranger because of that sweet axe.
Yeah, that's a great question. I know exactly what he's talking about. I was a day one Power Ranger watcher and fan from the first episode, which was the food fight episode with the pig. And so those however many episodes before the Green Ranger shows up, it's just the core 5. So I was a big Red Ranger fan, the leader, but I also I loved Cyclops and I loved Leonardo on the Turtles. So there was definitely kind of an archetype there of that leader. And then once the Green Ranger shows up, he obviously was a big deal to any of us watching it. It was whoa, there's an evil one, there's an evil one of these Power Rangers, we've never seen that before.
Sure.
And so I was a really big fan of the Green Ranger and Tommy, but my next door neighbor, that was his favorite. So he got to be Tommy the Green Ranger, and his parents got him, somehow managed to find a Dragon Zord toy, and I think the sword flute, which I actually have one in my display case over there, for him for Christmas. Sadly, I never got a big giant Red Ranger sword, but I do have. Wow, that's weird.
Here, zooming in. There you go.
I have the destroyed remains of a Red Ranger sword. That's actually one of the props that we made for the big Shattered Grid live action promo that I directed, that Jason David Frank and I made back in 2018 as a surprise for the to kick off the big Shattered Grid, the comic event that we did in the books. We did a big live action short film promo with him playing Lord Draken and clips from 25 years of Power Rangers in the throne room, and we built this whole throne room. It was pretty cool. It was 11 shots and 10 of them are VFX shots. It was pretty wild. I got the original composer from Power Rangers to come back to score it as well.
Wow.
So yeah, that was a pretty cool kind of bucket list. I can't believe we're actually doing this kind of thing. So
that's fantastic, man. And Tim also says that's amazing. He has a replica Dragon Dagger and a Red Ranger helmet himself. So that's cool. And also says he just wants to say congrats on all the success and amazing work you've been putting out constantly. Been a fan for a long time. Actually, in the letter pages of an issue of COWL, as am I.
Oh, cool.
I did a text piece for COWL back in the day, and I love, and Kyle, I'm so thrilled that COWL is part of the Masive universe. Is the COWL era almost like your Justice Society era of the Masive universe?
That's exactly it. It's funny because when we launched Radiant Black, the book is set in Lockport, Illinois, which is my hometown. Well, I grew up in Homer Glen, but I went to high school in Lockport. So the book is set in Lockport. And so there's a lot of, I use a lot of references. The book's not about me, but there's a lot of me in the book, especially in Nathan and in Marshall, and kind of two very different sides of my personality, I guess.
Absolutely.
Parts of those characters. But there are gags in the first issue. We have a COWL. I think we put a poster of COWL on the retro video rental store wall. It's in issue 2. There's a copy of COWL on Nathan's desk or his bedside table or something. And so again, it really started. It's Eric Stevenson's fault. Eric messaged me. Well, he actually messaged me saying hey, have you ever thought of connecting this book, which we haven't done yet, but I'm planning to. So I got to be careful of what I say. I almost just said like kind of a big thing. But he was like, "Hey, have you ever thought of connecting this?" And I was like, into what became the Massiverse. And I was like, "No, but do you think we should?" And he's like, "I think it could be cool." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, I could see that." And then I was like, I'd had this crazy idea about could COWL fit, but I didn't want to, I don't know, that just felt like maybe it's too much. And he was like, no, he's like, I think that could really fit. And so then I started thinking through it, and basically what's really cool about it is that the events of COWL in the comic book that we published in 2014, those events actually did happen in the 1960s in the Massiverse, okay? But then Nathan and Marshall are also fans of these like blockbuster superhero movies of the early 2000s. There's probably like 2 of them that are like, I think of them as like superhero biopic blockbusters of COWL. And it's like what the Sam Raimi Spider-Man and Bryan Singer X-Men movies were for me in high school.
Sure.
It was like that's their version of that when they were in high school. So it's fun because it means like the events of the book actually happened and are in universe, but then we also have like the media component and like the superhero kind of the superhero film and we have all of that stuff. Being a fan of that stuff, which is so much what the book is about in some ways, is celebrating our fandom of superheroes. So it exists in a meta sense as well. And then when we did issue 15 of Radiant Black, he goes up against his greatest challenge yet, which is creative license. And we introduce basically a YouTube channel that makes a living doing like, who'd win in a fight, like death battle style, like mashups, and then like, steals people's IP and then just makes money off the ad sales. And so the real Radiant Black takes a shot at that, because the next video is who'd win in a fight between Radiant Black and Blaze from COWL. And so we thought, so the real Marshall gets annoyed because he reads the script and realizes he loses and shows up on set and starts chewing out the director, and then chills out when he realizes they've cast Batman Beyond, Will Friedle, to play him. And so Will's actually drawn in the book. And then a few pages, he offers to like help him out and do all the visual effects in camera, but he has some thoughts on the story. And so a few pages later, there's a QR code and an ad, and when you scan that QR code, it takes you to, and this was a surprise, we didn't tell anyone we were doing it, it takes you to a 5.5-minute fully animated short film where Will Friedle is voicing Radiant Black, and all of the actors who played the characters from COWL in my original college thesis film, The League, that started my career back in 2008, those actors all returned 15 years later to voice the characters for this cartoon. And I don't want to spoil anything for the COWL 1964 series, the series finale that's going to be coming out in the next couple months. But that scene that opens the cartoon, the animated Radiant Black Blaze short, is actually a scene between the Grey Raven and Blaze. And they're talking about doing something that changes the course of COWL's legacy. That scene is also in the COWL 1964 issue number 4. So like you actually see how, so you see what I mean? Like we kind of go reverse with it all. So
that's great, man. No, I'm a big fan of COWL, and if you ever want to do any meta audio of any sort of where to go, buddy, because as you know, I mean, I've been a fan of COWL from day one. So and I know it's coming in a few months. Your co-creator on COWL, Rod Rice, is he drawing the issue and everything?
Yeah.
Great.
We've put out the first 3 of 4.
Oh, okay.
And in issue 4,
I gotta catch up.
Yeah. The free. I'll send
Shame
you
on
PDFs.
Me. All right, buddy, please.
But yeah, the finale. We're working on the finale issue right now. It's taking a little longer, but
okay.
Again, we want to stick the landing. And it took us 10 years to come back to do more COWL.
I'm so happy.
We thought, yeah.
For people who don't know, COWL, as Kyle has said, it's set in the 60s, and it really is tied into Chicago and the unions and kind of the first mayor Daley, who was a real political machine kind of mayor. So it's really tied to the machine politics of the 1960s, and it's superheroes in that world. Fantastic series. I mean, really, Kyle and Rod had me at hello with that series, and I really adored it. And shame on me for not realizing. I thought it was still coming. I didn't realize the first 3 issues were out. So no, I will definitely pick up on that. And like I said, if you need any bonus stuff, if you need a radio voice from the 60s or even today, looking back, let's look back at the history of COWL and what went wrong and what went right. Whatever.
I will for sure take you up on that. I mean, I have wanted to do for a long time, and now that we're doing the Radiant Black audiobook, like I've wanted to do a full voice cast, either audiobook of COWL or something that's in universe where we have like original audio recordings, as if like Jeffrey Warner, there's a lot of Nixon in Jeffrey Warner, so the idea of him having recorded a bunch of conversations feels like, oh, that could totally have happened in the book,
sure,
or in the universe. So
sure.
That's the idea of having these kind of like, it's almost like the COWL tapes or the Grey Raven tapes.
Absolutely, yes.
And
like Nixon and Watergate.
I have absolutely, I'm not just blowing smoke, I have absolutely had you top of list to narrate for that very reason. And so I don't know if we'll do. I'm trying not to have a heart attack right now. Like we're stressed.
Yeah. You're doing a lot of shit, buddy. I hear you. No.
But one day. Yeah.
That'd be great. No, that'd be excellent, man. No, and again, I know how much the League meant to you, your college thesis movie that you made and everything. No, that's wonderful, dude. All right, again, you'll forgive me, but I'm gonna throw in some comments before we continue. And I'm so glad to see everybody chopping in with everything. Zero Zeku wanted to know what are some underrated hidden gem comic book series that you think more people should read. And you've if you want to say how you started writing in comics as well.
Can you say the question one more time?
He wanted to know about any comics under the radar that you're enjoying that people should get into that might be hidden gems currently.
Ooh.
And a lot of times and I can appreciate too, a lot of times when you're writing a series, it's hard to really dip into other people's work. So if that's a barrier, I understand.
No, not at all. I mean, Local Man was fantastic. It just
Tony Fleece and Tim Seeley, absolutely.
Tony Fleece and Tim Seeley, another Chicago connection. Speaking of Tony Fleece, like honestly, the book that I recommend to everyone, it's just one of my favorite things, is Stray Dogs. The book that Tony does with Trish Forstner.
Yep.
And Tone Rodriguez, and I think Brad. Who colors that? It's Brad. Not Brad Anderson, is it Brad?
I don't think it was Brad Anderson, but no, it's a great book. It's a wonderful book.
I know him. I've almost worked with him on some things. Oh, I'm ashamed that I don't remember I'm blanking on his last name right now. Anyway, so love the book. It's like, anyone who hasn't read Stray Dogs, it's like a Don Bluth animated film, but with even more of an edge, from like the late 80s, early 90s. Look who just joined the chat. Rod Reese himself.
Indeed. And I'm really glad. Rod, we're due a talk, and I didn't realize you're doing COWL. So expect an email. Let's fire up a new conversation, maybe right before the release of issue 4. But yeah, everyone's excited that Rod is here and in the chat. People are saying hello to Rod, which is very nice. That's excellent. Stanley wanted to know if you prefer writing for the big 2 or creator-owned. I have a suspicion that's an easy answer.
I mean, at this point, creator-owned for sure, but they're different. They're different muscles, and they scratch different itches, honestly. And it's always fun to be able to play with your favorite, toys that you grew up with, in a sandbox that's already built. But inevitably that can get a little stale creatively at times. And also just from a practical standpoint, like, there's a bunch of stuff that you create and you're not going to own, and that going in, that's the deal you sign.
Certainly.
But there's nothing better than building out worlds and universes and things like that, for yourself and your collaborators with your collaborators, and it being things that you're wholly as a team in control of. And I think, like, I see in one of the comments someone is responding, I'm probably to the COWL, the short film and all that it's an insane amount of devotion. I love it. And that's why, I mean, we're willing to go that extra mile when it's something that we have not only equity in, but we outright own and control, because you're doing it both for the love of the game, but you're also investing in yourself. And the equity there, the sweat equity of it all is something that's a lot easier to get excited about doing and pulling off, because it's wholly your own. That said, I still have Brad Simpson. Thank you.
Is the colorist? Yeah.
Shout out to Brad Simpson. Love his work. One day we will work together, Brad. But I have, like, obviously, like, a big Nightwing poster behind me. This is from the 1996 Chuck Dixon, Scott McDaniel, Carl Story, Gregory Wright series. That was Nightwing's my favorite character. He still is. He always will be, since I was 9 or 10 years old. And I was fortunate enough to write the New 52 series, but that's one where it's like, well, I'm still a fan of that character, and so.
Okay, because sometimes I ask creators, especially ones that had a real invested interest in the big two character that they wrote. It's like, can you read it now, or is that kind of like an old girlfriend where it's like, oh man, I please don't, like, well, get out of the room.
I should clarify that I can't read it. I still am a fan of the character, but yeah, I can't.
I get it.
When I was writing the book, I had lunch. I was fortunate enough to have lunch with Marv Wolfman, and Marv told me the same thing. That he's like, I haven't read an issue of Nightwing since I stopped writing him in New Teen Titans. I was like, that's like the early 90s, Marv. And he's like, yeah, exactly. He's like, I read a few when I, just for research, for continuity, when I ended up writing the book in the mid 2000s for a little while.
Yes.
He's like, but it is like that. It's like trying to stay friends with an ex-girlfriend. And I had the same thing happen when I left Power Rangers, and Ryan Parrott, who's like my brother, took over, and we would have these conversations all the time. And I know, I think it hurt him a little bit. Hurt's a strong word, but that I
hear what you're saying.
And I couldn't.
Yeah.
And then he said to me recently that he's like, I didn't really understand it. He's like, but now that I don't write the book anymore, I do understand. And it's like, I joked, it's like trying to stay friends with an ex. Like, I'm who your best friend is dating. Then it's like, I'm happy for you, but like, I don't need to hear about the sex. Like, I'm good. Like, you guys go with God. Like, but so yeah, that's
Kyle.
So
that's me in the score. That's me with the score. I spent 10 years there, man. That's my old girlfriend. And I mean, I still have friends there, and I'm happy for them, and I'm happy when I see them outside of work. But no, man, that's my old girlfriend. Sorry, it hurts. It does. I won't deny it. It hurts too much.
Totally.
Totally. So hilarious. Tim wants to know, how does Marcelo and the other amazing artists react to the ideas of scripts that have a new take on storytelling, like issue 18?
Well, there's a kind of a common refrain amongst the Marcelo, Eduardo, and Michael. Michael's in the chat right now. Michael, what is it? I feel like there's a term that you guys have started referring to this stuff by. Essentially, there's a collective sigh that typically happens first. But it's always it's preceded by me usually saying like, okay, so I had an idea, or like I had kind of a wild idea or something like that. Michael usually takes a deep breath because it usually means more work for him, and then he tells me no, and then we end up doing it. So that's kind of the genesis.
I've been in Michael's chair. I know exactly that feeling. No way in hell. And then you sit and you think about it. It's like, No, actually, that makes sense, and I know how to do it.
Yeah,
all right, fine, let's do it.
But Mark, I have like truly, I work with like some of the absolute best people in comics, like
great
Marcelo
artists
and Eduardo. I mean, just the I could not think of better collaborators. And with Marcelo, a co-creator partner, and Joe Clark. That is exactly. Thank you, Michael. It took 5 years, but he, yeah, just like part of the process, the creative process also usually involves at some stage, sometimes late in the game. I will wake up to Michael's in Australia, so he's 17 hours ahead on a good day. I will wake up at 6 a.m. to a novel length email from Michael telling me, so this doesn't work. I don't like this. We shouldn't do this. If you still want to do it, great, but here's all the reasons we shouldn't. And I just have to tell you. And a lot of times he's right. So there are things, especially narratively, there are things that sometimes come up where Michael's very, very good at distilling things down and like kind of cutting to the core of like, this is really the version you want, isn't it? Like, I understand
as every good artist should.
This aspect of this version, but this is really the thing, right? And sometimes it takes me a little while to just kind of process and think through, and we'll talk it out. But I usually get there, like, and it's just, again, that's the process. So
that's excellent. Jamzilla wanted to know how you came up with the name for your studio, Black Market Narrative.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that I made a short film about 10 years ago now called The Shadow Hours, and the working like company LLC that we were doing it under was called I think it was called Narrative Entertainment or something like that. And it was Brian Buccellato, myself, and our friend Omar Spahi. And I remember like I didn't love the name Narrative for some reason. And it's ironic to think about now because then years later when I put this together, and I spent several years trying to find a name or just in the back of my mind thinking of a name if I ever get to the point where like I actually do launch something officially. I mean, I had everything from like, it started as like black and blue because I love Nightwing, and it was going to be a logo where like the word black was colored blue and the word blue was colored black and that sort of thing. And then I had this whole thing about like secondary color because secondary colors, RGB, the secondary colors are CMYK and vice versa. And so the idea of like going back and forth between RGB being more like screen based film, moving pictures, things like that, and CMYK print, and just secondary, like I don't know, I really dug that. But then sure. Understandably, the idea of putting the word second in your company's name just felt like maybe I'm digging myself a little bit of a hole I don't need to. Then it was going to be Full Color was the name, which I was really excited about. That's actually the name. That's actually the legal name of Black Market Narrative is Full Color LLC, because I registered it and didn't know until after it had already gone through and registered and everything that there is like a trademark out of like Nevada on Full Color in a different field. Like it's not quite our space. It's not our space. It's not publishing or anything like that. But it's like it's still kind of like it's card game or cards, like playing cards, I think.
Okay.
And so it was like, man, well, it's just not worth it. And so the Black Market Narrative is actually a DBA for Full Color. And there was just something about the cadence of Black Market Narrative, as well as like the idea of like everything that I do for the rest of my creative life will always foundationally come back to the storytelling. And so narrative being this foundational pillar that I really not only pride myself on, but like I've spent over a decade like really grinding to get better and trying to innovate and really hone the craft. And, I all I've ever wanted to do my whole life was direct movies. I got started writing comic books it just kind of happened in some ways. And the thing I always did writing was back then, it was just something I did so I would have material to go make movies of, to go direct, right? And then all of a sudden that thing became the thing that I spent a decade refining, and it became the sharpest tool in my toolbox. And so the fact that I didn't like the name narrative 10 years ago is ironic, because that's what everything comes back to for me. And then the idea of like there being something a little illicit, kind of clandestine, the black market, you know, you go to the black market for the good stuff. It's not there for long because it's the black market and you have to know about it. That just felt like, ooh, I just like that. That became like a good kind of umbrella. I felt like it was a good umbrella for the types of things that we were looking to do and the kind of like boundaries we were trying to push on the mediums we loved.
Well, and given all the different little adjacent media things that you create for your narratives, no, it really is perfect. And really, the way you just described how you fell into comics, that's exactly what happened to me with Word Balloon. I was creating Word Balloon 20 years ago to make new audition material to get that next broadcast job, and here we are 20 years later, and it's its own thing. And I'm thrilled that it went that way. That wasn't the plan, but thank you all who've been watching and listening all these years for helping make that happen for me. And again, man, and especially, God, you know, we're talking today, and Diamond released its notice that they've gone into Chapter 11. And we don't know what the future is. That's just a reorganization thing, but it's never a good thing for a company to go into Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And we'll see how it shakes out. But no, it shows the shifting of the comic market. And I would imagine that is a continuing challenge for you as an independent creator to go to stores and get them to carry the book and everything.
That's a huge challenge. Yeah. I mean, look, I mean, there are a lot of challenges in the market and in the industry right now. There's a lot of books, I would say I think there are too many books, but only from the standpoint of like retailers are stretched so razor thin, trying to keep track of and across all of these different, not only titles, but publishers and smaller publishers and larger publishers. And now after Diamond kind of shuttered during COVID. And when I say shuttered, I don't mean, closed up shop, although that did happen for a little while for the shelter in place order. I mean, shuttered from the standpoint of like the industry going like, oh, whoa, like we don't have a way, if Diamond can't deliver books, which they couldn't for that period of however many months, it's like, we don't have a way to get our books out to people. They're the only distributor. And after that started to happen, and then, Lunar came about, and then Marvel signing up with Penguin Random House, there's now like 4 different distributors that stores have to keep track of, because one of the challenges with the direct market is that all the publishers had exclusive distribution deals with Diamond. And now that's no longer the case, which is why it's a component of why Diamond is in the shape it's in today. And they said that in their statement today.
That's right.
But it's not like in other industries where there are going to be multiple multiple distributors that you could go buy a product through, depending on what store you are. The same publishers have to sign exclusive distribution deals with the other distributors, because that's what keeps the margins the way they are and keeps things as best they can be. Like, there's not a ton of money in comics, like the margins aren't huge at all. And so, but what that does then is it means now as a store, you have to be ordering from Penguin Random House. You have to be ordering from Lunar. You have to be ordering from, you could order wholesale, and it's not wholesale. You could order through Diamond, who is buying the books wholesale from Penguin Random House or from Lunar, etc. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
And shelf space is at a premium. I know a lot of stores, it's like they're pulling books, our books even, they're pulling them only for subscribers. They're not even, there are stores I know where it's like, Rogue Sun's not even on the stands. They're only ordering it for subscribers. And part of the argument, it's not even an argument, but part of it, the reasoning being that like, when a book gets up into the upper numbers, into the 20s and the 30s, like we're not seeing that as often anymore, especially on the independent side. It's rarer and rarer, which is a problem unto itself. And you hear retailers talk about there aren't enough long running series. Like everything is short. It's 6 issues and done. 12 at most, and so, but then the flip side of it is, well, a lot of, a book kind of sells what it sells at issue number 20, at issue number 25. And it's like, well, yes, but why can't we get people to try it at that number? I understand that's a right now problem, but like my first issue of Spider-Man was issue number 600 and something, 700 and something, like we have been conditioned into this, but that's not how it ever used to be.
That's right.
So, what we're trying to do now, especially with like this rebuild era we're entering into, is like we're designing both Radiant Black and Rogue Sun, the 2 core ongoing monthly titles that we do in the Massiverse. We're designing those with new jumping on points. We just put out, as you just put on screen, the free story so far recap of Radiant Black. That's the back cover that literally shows these are the covers for issue 31 that we're bringing back in February. If you scroll down a little, you'll see there's information there. There's our sign up, our newsletter sign up link. And we're just trying to make it, actually the page before that in that recap is.
Yes, I'm going to get it in a second. Here we go.
Oh, cool.
No worries. Keep going.
It's actually all 6 volumes of the trade paperbacks that are out with the ISBN numbers. So that's, super easy to find. And it's actually more than 6 because we have the Radiant Red and Radiant Pink spinoffs.
Oh, okay.
Those miniseries are in there as well. And so, yeah, it's really about like messaging not only to retailers that we're not only are we back, we are committed in the long term here. We're not going anywhere. Like, we had delays this last year. The books are back on schedule, like Radiant Black and Rogue Sun are coming out monthly. That is our plan going forward. And on top of that, like we're trying to raise more general awareness around the books and the line and kind of all of the outside the box stuff that we're doing that, again, we're trying to push the boundaries on this medium and this genre of superheroes. That medium being comics and genre being superheroes that we all love. And what we think a modern superhero book can be, and trying to do things that elicit and evoke that kind of sense and feeling of magic that I had growing up reading the stuff and consuming like some of that superhero, multimedia, and in those nascent early days of what has now become arguably oversaturated. And it's just like, how do we do that now, but for this generation? For this era, and with this technology and the live stream that we're on right now, and all these things, it's like let's play to the strengths of the formats that and the devices and the tools and the platforms that people are using and consuming their fictional worlds on a day-to-day basis. And so that's kind of like our mantra and mission statement going forward. All that said, we are direct market titles, and so that means like we live and die by how comic stores order our books, and we are truly independent. There's no VC money here. There's no financier, nothing like that. Yeah. We are 100% independent, and we are just, as the creators, scratching and clawing to make these books and killing ourselves to make them as cool as possible, like truly. Whatever, like this is what I love. This is my passion. I have for sure lost years of my life over the last 5 years doing this, between the surgeries and the stress. And and everything else. Like I'm drinking espresso right now because I was up till 4:30 a.m. finishing some stuff, and then got a handful of hours of sleep. And I just, like, I'm gonna be 40 this year. I can't do that any much longer.
I hear you, man.
I got
so
like
hear
one
you.
of those in me a month, or maybe more than that lately, unfortunately. But it's just like, this is really, I guess, just me trying to express not only our dedication but our passion. And so, if you are watching this or you hear the audio version and like anything that we're talking about has sounded cool at all, I would just like urge you to like try our stuff. Like, you don't even have to like go buy it right now. Like I said, if you go to radiant.black/ketchup, CATCHUP, not the condiment, radiant.black/ketchup, you can read the story so far, the TLDR that we just put out for free. It's right there. You can get all of our volumes on sale right now directly from us, not through Amazon, not through Barnes & Noble or anywhere else. Like, you can buy them directly from the creators, and at like a really good discount. And then it's still, there's plenty of time. Like, final order cutoff on Radiant Black 31, which kicks off the rebuild era. That is February 3rd, with an on sale date, I believe, of like February 26th. I think that's a period instead of a comma.
Yeah, I'm gonna fix the comma. Hang on, kid. I'll do that again.
I didn't know you could do that.
How about that, man?
I love it.
Let me tell you, dude. I'm serious. I went to college to learn how to do TV, and every innovation online, it's like, okay, that was like 2 weeks of classes, and now it's a push of a button. So it's pretty funny. Here, I'll do it again. There we go.
There we go.
.black/ketchup.
Yep.
Is there a .com in there or no?
No, we have like, that's literally our domain is .black. So that was, talk about being nerdy. That was like the thing that excited me more than anything else as we were launching Radiant Black. Michael and I, we like to call him the Wizard. He hates it, so definitely don't call him that. But it's out of love, because he really can do anything. It's insane. He codes websites as well. So not only is he an exceptional designer and editor, but he also is an even equally impressive web architect. And so we're actually, I'll just say it here, we're literally putting together a super cool Masiveverse website right now that will also have direct buy links on all of our volumes. And it will integrate a lot of the cool extra stuff we've done over the years. So like, we didn't even talk about Radiant Black, like the first 6 issues. Sam Ewing, who's a protege of one of my very good friends and favorite composers, Bear McCreary, Sam joined us and scored the first 6 issues of Radiant Black. They're all original score. We did a full orchestral score and recorded with the Budapest Scoring Orchestra for issue 3, because the issue was the one where it's a day in the life of Nathan trying to adapt a short story into his novel and exploring the creative process. So I asked Sam to tackle that issue's piece of music. Similarly, I wanted to do it as the exploration of a theme, the stops and starts, trying to find your way. And then it just made sense to go all out and book a 60-piece orchestra to record it during COVID. So all that stuff will be integrated, the audiobook, all that, as well. Yeah, I don't remember what the original question was.
No.
Oh, yeah, so .black. We got really excited when we realized, wait, you can own .black? That's a thing? So Radiant .black? That's so cool. Part of the problem is similar to what just happened there, where you went, is there not a .com or anything else?
Or .com.
We have found that if we don't put http:// at the front, people don't realize that Radiant.black is actually a URL, because the idea that .black is actually a domain is, kind of off the beaten path.
Yeah. No, that's amazing, man. Here, more comments. Let's see. Rudy Hernandez, another former Chicago retailer. I first read Radiant Black because Lawrence Holmes talked about it, his issue on the score. I liked it so much I went out and bought the first trade. There you go, man.
Oh,
and Wyatt says the score is phenomenal.
It is. You know what? Let me show you one other thing, John. Speaking
Please.
of like,
yeah, we got plenty of time, Kyle. It's really up to your schedule. I mean, this could be a marathon if you want. I mean, because I really do want to cover. I really want to cover what some of the other books that we haven't talked about yet. So
yeah, I would love to. I would love to.
Good.
The espresso's kicking in, so I'm good here. Here, speaking of like kind of like some of the cool different stuff we do, and this actually applies to like that first volume that Rudy just mentioned, and the version that we are actually offering like right now on sale is pretty neat. So we do since all the superpowers come from miniature black holes, we do special issues that take place entirely inside black holes. And so we do those issues actually with fluorescent ink so that the whole book is a blacklight comic.
Wow.
I'm actually putting on screen right now some images from issue number 9, which was issue number 10, which was the first time we did this. So this is what it looks like with the standard colors. But then the fluorescent Pantone version looks like this under blacklight.
Excellent.
So what that has turned into over the years, again, trying to like play with that idea of like bringing some magic back into not only the world but the medium and the genre.
Yeah.
One of the things we do is I actually sign all the books now, all the volume 1s at conventions with what I call the secret radiant signature. And so what that means, well, I got to pull up the image here.
All right.
No, it's not that one. Hold on.
No problem, man.
I thought I was being really smooth. I thought I had it ready, all good to go. Here we go.
Don't worry, bud.
So the secret radiant signature is actually in full UV. So it's invisible ink, and then we have little radiant black lights that you can shine in order to see it.
That's excellent, man.
So I'm trying to find right here. Oh yeah, this is the one. Or no, it's not. Hold on. Oh, here it is. I know where it is. There we go. Here's a better image of it.
Is there another window I have to bring up or
no? Here, I'll share.
No worries.
I got it right here.
Okay, bud. So Cliff says, "Oh my God, I had no idea. I'm going to read them under the black lights." Yeah, man. God, that's like Jim Rugg's blacklight comics and stuff. All right, here it is, totally. Everybody.
No, honestly, shout out to Jim. Like the idea of doing a blacklight comic, like totally came out of. It was a confluence of ideas and influences, but Jim did an awesome blacklight comic called Octobriana.
Absolutely.
1976 was that the title?
Sounds right, but yeah, about a Soviet comic and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So he did like the world's first blacklight comic, and then I think we did the second one with Radiant Black, and we've done it since. We've done it twice now. But yeah, I've got a video here somewhere of like literally like the light turning on, so you can see the signature go from being invisible to fully visible.
Legible. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, the reason why I'm talking about this is because on the sale right now, for the Radiant Black sale, Volume 1 actually comes. I signed like 40 copies of Volume 1 with the UV ink, and so if you buy it right now while the supplies last, it not only comes with the secret Radiant signature for free, but we also include one of the Radiant black lights so that you can see it as well.
That's great. Wow, that's excellent, man. Man, you should have to go to the head shop to get the black light bulbs and everything. That's fantastic. I love it.
Right? Yeah, we're trying to hook you up.
I remember when Marvel had the blacklight posters back in the late 70s or early 80s. I remember those back in the day.
Oh yeah.
So
here I found the just so you can see it. I found the
sure. Then we're doing video. Why not? Yeah, okay, hold on, everybody. Here. There we go. Coming up. There it is. Boom.
You'll see. Hold on. I'll get it.
Before and after.
Yeah.
There you go. Look at that. That's excellent, man. Too goddamn funny.
So, yeah.
Very funny. That's cool. No, truly, Kyle. That's the thing. It is, and I'm glad we credited Jimmy as well. No, it's these added little things that, beyond telling a really and drawing a really great story, as your creative team does, you're giving all these different other meta things that I think really make the Masiveverse very exciting. And you've really tapped into the now of our current culture and found a way to put it into comics in a way that I don't think anybody else is doing. And that's really terrific. Tell me about the audiobook and the stuff that you did with Patton and the others, the audio stuff, which is going to lead to the found footage film that you're making as well.
Yeah, totally. So, well, I'll start with Radiant Black. So we're doing an audiobook for Radiant Black, and for, I don't know why you would know this, but for those who don't know, I guess what I was going to start with. I was actually I was a sound editor for like 10 years. That was like one of my emphasis, or that was an area of post-production that was a big emphasis of mine when I was in college, in my first 2 years at the University of Iowa. And then when I transferred to Chapman University in Orange County, it was actually the fact that I had this background not only in sound editorial, but this like real interest and love for it that actually helped me get into the film school, because there weren't a lot of sound centric students there for post-production. And then once I was in the film school, I did end up kind of pivoting. I did end up pivoting into directing as my emphasis, but I still did all the sound work, post-production sound on my own films, like The League, which is what COWL is based on. It's our 30-minute, superhero noir. We shot entirely on film. Tons of visual effects. Like, I did all the sound myself. It's a 5.1. It's a discrete 5.1 mix that I did. After film school, I ended up working at then Sound Deluxe in Hollywood, which was I was working for the Hollywood Edge division, which was like a sound effects library that was commercially available, but it was in partnership kind of with Sound Deluxe. So I was doing a lot of stuff there. I was there full time. And I was also like I worked on this movie called Barry Monday with, what's his name? He played Owlman in Watchmen.
Yeah. The young Owlman, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Goddamn, he's in the Red movies as well. Great guy, Patrick.
Patrick. Yeah.
Last name, everyone. Owlman. God, great actor, really, and did the press junket for Watchmen, and one of the nicest actors on that line and everything. That was very sweet, because by the time I got to him, I was so overwhelmed, and I'm like, I'm here with Patrick, and he held my hand. He's like, "It's fine, man." He goes, "It's been a long day. Don't worry." He goes, "You'll get there." So I'm counting on the chat to give us Patrick's last name, because he's a really good actor, and I'm always happy to see him when he pops up in films and things. Anyway.
So that movie happened, and I was actually I worked on I was one of the editors on it, sound editors, and so I was like on this path for sound editorial that I was definitely like I loved, but it wasn't my true love or calling.
Sure.
And so I was doing that while I was also writing at my first couple books at Marvel, and then DC for Gates of Gotham and Deathstroke and the beginnings of the New 52 and everything. So I ended up quitting that path and that job in order to write comics full time. Fast forward all these years, and it's like when I was doing Power Rangers, I was hired to write the Battle for the Grid video game. And then when we decided to do it with, voice cast, I actually voice directed the game as well. And so, again, it was an Eric Stevenson idea. He had someone, Lorelei at Image, who runs digital, reached out, and she was like, "Hey, we've been talking about like, it might be cool to do audiobooks." And I was thinking about it, and we were already doing the No One project, which we can get to next, but
sure.
I was like, oh yeah, you're right. It would be really cool to do audiobooks. I was like, God damn it. Like, that's such a great idea. Now I got to do it. And I only, unfortunately, know how to do things one way, which is all out.
All in.
So,
yeah.
We are doing a big Radiant Black audiobook. And I've actually got a really fun little teaser that we put together for it that I'm going to play for you here.
Okay, hopefully the sound will come out, but if not. Oh, is that... all right, here. Okay, everybody, hold on a second. Here we go.
Hey everybody, it's Will Friedle here, and I just wanted to thank all of the Radiant Black fans out there for voting, and especially voting Marshall, because I think we all know that Marshall is the ultimate Radiant Black, the only one able to...
Hey, Ryder Strong here. The votes aren't over yet, Will, and I believe Nathan is still in the running, and is the real Radiant Black.
Really? Really?
Yeah, I think that's a fact.
I guess if you don't want the multiverse saved in any way, shape, or form, then you could vote Nathan. If you'd like Radiant Black to really actually do something and help people, then maybe Marshall would be the way to go, which is why he's carried the mantle for so long.
Take everything you just said and reverse it.
Okay, well, true. We have to talk about this because obviously we disagree. Marshall is the way to...
Nathan.
Attaboy. That's what we're talking about. Fantastic, man. Outstanding.
So what we're doing now is we're working on it at literally right now. We were trying to do it for last year in the fall, but again, just getting the books back on track and everything is obviously the much bigger priority. So we're working on this now. We've made some cast announcements. I've got some slides here if you want to show them, John. So I've got them in the oh, there we go. Let's see. Let me do it this way. There we go. You should have that now. So Will Friedle, famously the voice of Terry McGinnis, Batman Beyond, will be joining us, reprising his role as Marshall Ward, reprising his role from the secret animated Radiant Black vs. Blaze short film. And also we did a bunch of like cool in-universe audio ads for like really bad YouTube channels in the book. Like we did a bunch of... Do you know about this? Have I ever shown you? Okay, no. I'll pull those up next. So Will recorded them all for us, and people didn't know that it was his voice. We put them out on Radiant Black's Twitter like they were in universe leading up to issue 13 coming out. And they're for products like, Carb, the basically like a Postmates like service, and Brush, which is like a manscaping device. But when you see it in the comic, you actually see him recording these in issue 13, and he keeps calling the device Bush, and they keep telling him that's not what it's called. It's Brush, and he goes, that's not nearly as good. So Will is playing Radiant Black, the Marshall Ward character, I should say, of Radiant Black. Joining him as his ride or die best friend is his real life ride or die best friend, Ryder Strong, who is playing Nathan Burnett. Will and Ryder, for those who don't know, starred on the very popular 90s show Boy Meets World that we all loved and grew up on. So it feels very fitting for them to be playing these millennial superheroes again, touching on these very real world issues through the aesthetic lens of our childhood. There's a theme. And then the father of the Massiveverse himself is also kind of the father of my superhero fandom. Lauren Lester, who is playing Nathan Burnett's dad, we just call him Mr. Burnett. Lauren famously played Dick Grayson on Batman the Animated Series. So he's the voice of Robin and the voice of Nightwing. He's also the voice of No One for us in all of our No One content, which we'll get to. Playing Mrs. Burnett is the mom to a generation, Kim Rhodes, who starred on The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody as the mom. She's also on Supernatural. She'll be playing Mrs. Burnett. Joining us for our cosmic smuggler named 001 is another No One audio series alumni, Mr. Todd Stashwick, who had a really, his incredible career, an incredible actor playing some incredible roles, but really had an awesome, even bigger kind of breakout part and role or moment a few years ago on season 3 of Star Trek Picard, playing
so
Captain
great
Liam Shaw. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, another Chicagoan, everybody, by the way, and I'm sure Kyle is just like me. When I met Todd, I'm like, "Hey, man, worked at the score at XRT." He's like, "Oh, that's cool."
The first time we ever met was on the phone. Yuri Lowenthal introduced us, and I was in Chicago at C2E2, and Todd and I got on the phone, and we just spent, having never met, not knowing each other at all, we just spent 10 minutes doing really pronounced Chicago accents at each other. That was how we bonded. And then actually playing Radiant Pink, Eva Reyes, is another Star Trek alumni, Melissa Navia, who is on Star Trek, I believe Strange New Worlds is
That's right.
Her show. From Jujutsu Kaisen, we have Ann Yatko, who is playing Satomi Son for us, Radiant Red. And I think this is the next one, playing he's the bad boy anti-hero of the Massiveverse, my girlfriend's crush and favorite character, which is not at all complicated to compete with, one of your own characters for your partner's affection. We can unpack that later, with abs that are no way possible real. In no way are these abs possibly real. Playing Shift is the legend Troy Baker himself. So that's who we've revealed so far. We also have, I think I have said it publicly, Josh Keaton, the voice of Spectacular Spider-Man.
Oh, wow.
And among many, many other things. Josh will be joining us. And there's a few more that are 100% confirmed that are like real big heavy hitters that are going to be a lot of fun to talk about very soon here. So the book, Volume 1, will be out this year.
Okay.
The plan is, like I said, it's a full voice cast. I'm actually going to narrate the book. I'll be joined by Cherish Chen, who was my co-writer on Radiant Black issue 6, which was the origin of Satomi of Radiant Red. Cherish will narrate that chapter of the audiobook. And Sam Ewing, who contributed, like I said, the score for all 6 issues of Radiant Black, the first 6 issues, he will be utilizing a lot of that music. Sam's going to be doing more music, new music. And so, yeah, it's gonna be a fun one. And there aren't a lot of audiobooks for comics. Surprise, surprise, a very visual medium. But this one in particular, I think, like I said, we're treating it. I don't know. I don't want to say a radio play because that evokes like an old era, but it's quite right now, but
it is. Hey, listen,
yeah.
As an audio fan and a fan of not only old time radio, but the modern audio product of audio drama, it's a brave new world in audio drama. And man, you put your earbuds in and really get immersed in the theater of the mind, which is what always was the key to great radio drama as well. And now we have the technology to really layer all the different sound elements, as you know, as an experienced sound editor yourself. Kyle, you're friends with Rob Burnett, right? Rob Meyer Burnett.
Oh, I don't know. I know.
Oh, okay.
Where do I know that name from?
Well, Robert has a YouTube show and does a lot of observations of. He calls them observations. Robert Meyer Burnett. He directed Free Enterprise, the 1999 movie with Rafer Weigel and Eric McCormick. That was kind of the Big Bang Theory before Big Bang Theory, 230-something guys that meet William Shatner, who plays himself, and convinces him to do their movie and stuff. Really great comedy, very much in vein of Big Bang Theory, which came years later. But in fact, Rob is in the midst of releasing this audio drama called True Noir, based on a Max Allan Collins detective story about the assassination of Mayor Cermak, our mayor in Chicago from the 1930s.
I do know about this, yes.
There you go. And and Rob, much like you, has assembled this incredible voice cast of animation people, but also live action actors that are really killing it on this series. So no, I understand the like, yeah, you don't want to be associated with the old timey stuff. I absolutely respect that. But no, if people aren't hip to what's going on in audio drama, you go through Audible. There are a lot of free things on YouTube that you can find. In fact, totally. I just found Graphic Audio years ago did an adaptation of Greg Rucka's novelization of Batman No Man's Land that came out 25 years ago.
I didn't know about that.
And it's a full cast, and it's great. And it's on YouTube. I'll send you the links, Kyle.
Oh, please do. No, I will. So down for that.
Because and I haven't texted Greg yet, but I'm so happy because really it was Greg's novelization that kind of brought me back into comics because I was waiting to go to Vegas for a boxing match to cover for the Score. Yeah. And I'm at O'Hare Airport, and I'm in the bookstore looking for something to grab because this is pre-tablets, everybody. And I'm like, a Batman novel. And I read the back cover, and I'm like, well, this sounds intriguing. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that's how I discovered Greg Rucka. And, as an audience, from an audience standpoint, and immediately fell in love with him. And I'm like, this guy gets Batman. This is great.
That is so cool. I similarly, I mean, I was younger, but I wasn't reading comics monthly. I was reading whatever I could get. I was in 5th grade at the time, so I was about 10 years old. I was getting stuff at the grocery store when, we saw it, and it's like, this was also the era, this was 1995, so this was the era where it was like you'd read part 1 of a Spider-Man story in Amazing Spider-Man, and part 2 would be in Spectacular, and part 3 would be in like New Mutants, and so you were never able to, you were just reading stuff cold.
Yep.
You were never able to follow anything. But anyway, at that same grocery store, I remember walking down the aisle of the books one day, and there was this novel called Spider-Man: The Venom Factor by Diane Duane. And it was like, oh my gosh, they made a Spider-Man, like a real book? And so I bought it, and reading that novel was like, I still have these memories, like in a good way, of like staying up all night, like in the cold winter, like in my bedroom, like with a little light to read through this thing. And I just really fell in love with the superhero novels. And the next one, she did a few. There were some great ones. Christopher Golden did an amazing Daredevil novel called Predator's Smile.
Yep. Will Murray did a great Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yep, I think it was Chris Golden who wrote the X-Men Mutant Factor. Was it Mutant Factor? It was a trilogy of 3 original novels where Magneto takes over the island of Manhattan, and like awesome stuff. And then I find this really thick Batman novel by Denny O'Neil, and it's for Nightfall.
Yep.
Which I didn't know who Denny O'Neil was at the time. The irony that, Denny, for those who don't know, not only a prolific, amazing writer in his own right and a Batman writer, he was also editing and running the Batman line at that time. And so he was really guiding what was Nightfall and, breaking Bruce Wayne's back, and John Paul Valley coming in. And basically, this was an era when everyone wanted the dark and gritty heroes, the Punisher and Wolverine and the Image guys, Spawn and all this stuff. And so it's like, why isn't Batman killing? Batman should kill, like Batman, dark, edgy hero. And he said, okay, we'll give you that. We'll show you why Batman shouldn't be that. And so when they replace him with Jean Paul Valley, anyway, famously that story sprawled, not as wide and not as bad as the Spider-Man the Clone Saga, which I also was reading and loved as a kid.
Sure.
But anyway, it didn't sprawl quite to that extent, but it was big and cumbersome. And so when Denny wrote this novelization, essentially, he stripped it all down. It's got a really clear, clean focus. And I fell in love with this thing, right? So much so that about 10 years ago, I did Kevin Smith's Fat Man on Batman podcast. And I did episodes talking about Nightwing and my time doing Nightwing and everything. And then I went back because I was doing Batman Beyond. And part of going back, Kevin wanted me to bring in like 5 favorite Batman stories to talk about. And so I tried to go a bit off the beaten path. And so I went everything from Like I brought in like Paul Pope's Batman Year 100. I brought in like certain episodes of the animated series or maybe Batman Beyond at that time. But I also brought in this Denny O'Neil novelization, and we talked about it. And this thing is like tattered. I'd read it, dozens of times growing up. And we finished recording at Kevin's house in the studio, and I leave and I realize I forgot it. And so I email Kevin. He's like, I got it right here. It's all good. Fast forward like 7 years, I want to say. I never got it back. I just didn't connect with Kevin again. We were never in the same place to get it. And there's not to get into details, but basically there was someone I was seeing who worked with Kevin. And when it came up, the first thing Kevin says is like, oh, I really like Kyle. He's like, I've got his book. So he brought it in. So I got it back.
Oh, that's
like
great, man.
7 or 8 years later.
Hilarious.
I bumped into him like 2 years ago at a comic convention in Columbus, Ohio. And it was awesome to see him again, and like super, super sweet. And immediately he's like, you got your book, right? And it was like, I was like, how do you remember that? Like you talk to hundreds of people a month probably.
Yes.
And that he held on to that for all those years. He's like, I felt so bad I couldn't get it back to you for all that
Well, he's
time.
one of us, that's why. Because man, I mean, he gets it. Have you ever heard the audio adaptation of Nightfall?
No, I haven't heard that either.
All right, I'm gonna have to
Where
find
have
that
I
for
been?
you.
Jeez.
That's no, man. Well, this shit flew under the radar. You really had to go into the audio department of Borders or Barnes and Noble to find this stuff. And I've been to a couple American Library Association conventions in the last few years because I have friends at the ALA.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad. God, really good writers. Vita Ayala just wrote last year a Jessica Jones audio drama. And God damn it, Ben, who's been writing a shit ton of Wolverine.
Oh, Ben Percy. He did all the Wolverine. Yeah, that stuff's great. Well, that's the thing. Well, okay. Well, first, just to bring it back to how it started, Greg's No Man's Land novelization, that's like the last one that I, like in that era for me, that I bought and loved. Like, I think I was like, I might have been in high school by that point, like a freshman in high school, sophomore in high school. But I similarly loved it. I love those comics too. But I loved the novelization. Again, I felt like it streamlined things down, and it was like a really great lesson in hindsight as a storyteller, being able to be as familiar with the No One comics as I was, and then to see how to approach an adaptation and actually of your own work was like really, really insightful for me. But the Ben Wolverine stuff, so the way that this all started, not only the Radiant Black audiobook, but like the No One series and everything, is because, I don't know if I've talked about this publicly yet. During COVID, DC announced a partnership with Spotify for a first look deal. It wasn't DC. But it was through Warner Brothers and Blue Ribbon Content. I think it was like the division of Warner's that was doing these digital approaches to do original audio productions. And so, the big one that came out was the David Goyer Batman audio series. I'm blanking on what it was called, but I actually, not only did I take meetings on that, I actually was doing several of them. Wow. I had a really big Nightwing one that was like, it was cool and a little eclectic, and the best thing is it didn't end up happening. I won't get into it, but like it didn't end up going, despite it getting quite close. And the plan was for me to voice direct it all and everything as well. And then Tom Taylor's run started like right after that, which I was so excited about because, and he and I have talked about it, like we were riffing on similar approaches where you're going like, hey, this character who we love, it hasn't been right for some time. And like, how do we know what it should be. How do we do that? And Tom did it brilliantly on the run. And so that stuff I have seen a bunch of Tom's Nightwing. That stuff I have been able to look at this point. Like, but anyway, so I was doing this on the Nightwing one. I had a really big Superman one with Mark Guggenheim and
What a friend.
There was an actor attached who may have a history with Superman that I won't say anything beyond that. And there was another one. There was actually a big one that I did with Max Winkler, a very talented writer and director, who also is the son of Henry Winkler. And so Max and I, we actually did sell that show, and we wrote a full pilot for a big kind of irreverent, I don't want to say irreverent, but a very eclectic would be the right term, kind of like reinterpretation of Superman and the Smallville kind of years. And it was so much fun. And writing it that was when I was like, oh, I know exactly how to do this. I know how to do this for this medium, because it's tricky. And Ben was really good at it too on the Wolverine stuff, because I listened to a lot of that as background. It's like, it's not it's tricky because it's you can't show and not tell. You're literally in a format where you have to tell, but how do you do that and have it feel naturalistic still? And so that's what we were working on. And so when they didn't happen, or they didn't go forward past the pilot, I was already developing what became No One, because it started as a series I was actually doing as a Batman project with Tim Sale years ago.
Oh wow!
And it changed quite a bit since then, but the core of it, that's kind of where it originally started. And after Radiant Black and doing some of the outside the box stuff we were already doing on Radiant Black, I had that realization. It was like, well, not only could we do No One in the Masive verse and super contemporary, but we could play with mediums. And if the book is about two, it's the book is very kind of, it's our contemporary kind of true crime superhero series. So it's Batman-esque in that way, but it follows. There's this digital hacktivist named No One who doxes these 4 super corrupt people in Pittsburgh. Nothing happens. So then months later, someone starts killing them, and it sparks this ideological accountability killing movement. And there's this foundational mystery about who No One is, because he ends up becoming, an actual flesh and blood character in a helmet and suit and everything. And there's a mystery about who he is, but also about who the killer is and whether they're connected or not. And so 2 of the characters in the book are newspaper reporters who are talked into starting a podcast by their failing paper's new media division, covering their investigation into No One and this killing movement. And so we decided, well, we should make that podcast. So we actually structured the project to incorporate this scripted audio series. And so Brian Buccellato and I wrote everything, the book and the audio series. I directed it all, and we were able to get Rachel Lee Cook and Patton Oswalt to voice our 2 intrepid reporters. You can see the characters here, Teddy Barstow and Julia Page. And so at the end of every chapter, well, what originally came out as issue, there is a page that's an ad, essentially, in-universe ad with a QR code for the episode that they put out, like in the book that they're producing. We then made it for real. So we did 10 of them. We also then went even crazier and incorporated, this is literally page 1 of the book. Okay, enter a command, and when you turn the page, it tells readers, No One is a multimedia story. Scan QR codes, listen to each podcast episode, read articles. The next page after that is the first, kind of blog post article that we did for real. This site exists and everything, talking about meeting No One and his Terminal Connect or his terminal site where he's going to dox these people. It's 00110000.info. And so when you go to that site and you turn the page here, it shows you these are a bunch of the doxing files and everything, right? So that site exists for real. I'll show you in a sec once I'll tab through this one more time.
Okay.
But then we went even further. In addition to making the in-universe websites, we also did all of the in-universe newspaper articles. So if you're seeing this on screen right now, if you hold up your phone, you could scan any of those QR codes. Peter Nikias, who is he was a crime reporter for CNN and the Chicago Tribune. I read him for years. He covered a lot of the gun violence and the overnights in Chicago. Peter came on to write all these articles with us. So the ones that are a lot of background material are QR codes in the book, and they're all hosted on our fictional newspaper in the book, the Pittsburgh Ledger's website that we made for real. They have branded coverage called The Drop because no one drops these data files and doxes people, so they branded out the coverage of The Drop. And then the articles that are really important to the story are actually published in the book itself. I'll show you a good example here.
Sure.
So like stuff like, stuff like this. We'll do the actual articles, things like that, that they're additive and kind of and really integral to this. So the volume that we put out here is like fully remastered. We basically went and did something like 145 pages worth of art revisions, and we punched up all the additional material, in part because there's a film coming, and as I said up top, the film is in universe with the comic, so we want to keep that immersion, right? But I just want to show, like, when I say like integration in fictional websites and everything, I want to show like the my favorite one, if that's cool. So
sure.
This is kind of one of the biggest things we did. So that site that I mentioned a minute ago, the 00110000.info. So if you actually, I'll do it like this.
No problem. This is great, man. Seriously.
Oh, thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. By the way, everyone, Patrick Wilson, if you didn't see it before, was the guy that Kyle and I were struggling, the actor that he worked with. That was Night Owl
Patrick
and Watchmen.
Wilson. Yes.
Great actor.
If you watch Barry Monday, there's a scene where he gets hit in the nads with a trumpet. That is my trumpet. That not the actual trumpet on screen, but I tracked all the trumpet. I was a trumpet player for like 20 years. So I tracked all the trumpet stuff in there as like,
oh, that's great,
like diegetic or non-diegetic sound, like for the whole thing. That's one we should. That's another book we should talk about at some point, and we should have Joe Clark on. His Deep Cuts, which was a big jazz series that we just put out, and we're nominated for an Eisner this year. But anyway, here, if you can show this real quick, John. Okay, so if you go to 00110000.info. It exists for real, and the command code is Terminal Connect Accountability. That actually, you learn that from the website, the articles and the show notes on episode 1 as they walk through how everything has happened and everything. And then here, these are actually all of the files that no one released, and they're all date stamped because you're going to reference this site if you really want to go down the ARG rabbit hole as you're reading the book. If you go to the site, like, you're going to reference these files get referenced in the book, and then you know when to go watch one or read one or whatever. So we do things like this.
And for the audio audience right now, it's slowly coming out as text, but as it just like kind of like
typed.
Yeah, like it's being typed, exactly. So another reason, folks, that you got to watch the YouTube channel of Word Balloon to appreciate what Kyle and the Masive people are putting out here in a meta way. In addition to their stories, unbelievable stuff here, man. Fantastic! Look at that. No one is above the law. And I am no one. And yeah, you're getting no one's story as it's being typed.
Issue 2 is kind of like the culmination of this thing, right? So there's a sequence that happens in issue 2 where I'll show it on screen here. No one is actually, or I should say, issue 2 is the best representation of like that type of integration and kind of hopefully next level stuff that we did.
Sure.
So this sequence, no one is actually. So he's spotted at a crime scene planting a GoPro camera. Okay, and so there's this chase that happens with the officers, and so for the audio crowd, it's an officer's yelling, "Hey, freeze! It's him! It's no one!" And so the cops give pursuit. No one hops over this railing, and then big leap up into the rooftop of the parking garage. Ends up hopping up these stairs, this cool railing. Big jump down from above, and then helicopters hit him with lights. And there's actually a sequence then that happens right after on the next page where there's a kind of an altercation. An officer opens fire with a taser and ends up getting kind of deflected back by no one and hits one of the other officers. So it plays like no one assaulted these cops, right? They open fire on the roof, like it's a whole thing. He flees. Okay. At the end of the issue, there is a press conference where Chief Mixon ends up smearing no one, claiming that he went after these officers, he attacked them, they were defending themselves, the whole 9 yards, right? Well, that's not what happened. So what we did was the episode goes through some of the events, and then a day or two later, or maybe it was a few weeks later, based on the timestamps, we did this one in real time. There's an article that runs. No one spotted fleeing murder scene. Police open fire after masked man assaults officers. So Peter wrote this one with us, wrote it like a true, if he were covering it as a reporter, covering a crime scene, like in Chicago, he wrote it pure, right? And again, it smears no one based on what Mixon says at the press conference, right? So, and the page on the right-hand side here, for people watching this, this is a QR code that takes you back to no one's terminal site, and it gives you the title of a video that you should watch from May 10th, 2023, warning video, Albert Mixon. And so what we did, I'm going to play this. I'm going to show that video right here, John.
Okay, buddy.
We're going to go back to the terminal site, and when you go to that video, so 05/10/23 warning video, Albert Mixon, right? So this is what that video is.
So it's like found footage video, everybody listening rather than watching. And again, I encourage you to go to YouTube and Word Balloon's YouTube channel to experience this at about 2 hours and 2 minutes into our conversation. Look at that. That's fantastic, man. Very found footage looking. Unbelievable. Is that a real city, COWL? Is that a CGI? How did you do this cityscape? Ha! Albert makes some coward, deceiver. You sick your dogs on me instead of hunting for the real criminals. And then you lie to save face, to curry political favor. I did not attack the police. I was attacked by them. Their corruption will be revealed. I have video proof of their incompetence. You have 1 week. Tell the people of the city the truth about what happened. Albert, tell them why you want me as your scapegoat. Or I'll show them. Sign no one. Excellent.
So 1 week later, we ran a newspaper article where Chief Mixon retracts his statement.
Hilarious.
And so he folds under the pressure.
That's fantastic.
Isn't that fun?
Well, answer my question. How did you, is that a real cityscape, or did you CGI that? What did you for that video?
So that's actually so first of all, a big shout out to Ramon Palermo, a friend of mine, a friend of ours, who built this for us, or with us, I should say. And that's all predominantly built in Unreal Engine. So it's I think the base of it is actually a city pack that was released by Epic and Unreal Engine for Unreal Engine 5 that was built in partnership with the last Matrix movie that just came out.
Oh, wow.
And so it's designed to be basically an environment that's like an open world city that creators can go play around in, stage things in, the whole 9 yards. So we use that as our base to kind of build all of this out.
Yeah.
At the end of the book then, so that's all in Unreal Engine. At the end of the book, there's one more QR code, and that one goes to a really big one that I'll pull up here. This will be the last one I share, I promise.
All good, buddy. This has been great.
So is the share screen working when I do it, or is it stuttery or anything? It's working?
No.
Okay.
No, it was working great. By the way, I'll wait till it's done, and then Kari has a question regarding all of this stuff. But
so the last QR code, without spoiling what happens at the end of the comic, the last QR code takes you to a video. Because towards the end of the book, a box of footage shows up, and it's purportedly footage from the No One operation itself. And this is what we then, as a surprise, played after the last issue came out. We played this at San Diego Comic-Con to make a big announcement. Oh. John, does the audio work when I play it, by the way?
Not now, but it did work before when
It'll work now.
Okay.
To the hypocrites and the corrupt, the swindlers, the parasites, all those who take from their fellow man, this message is for you. For too long, this country has been choked by corruption and injustice. The vulnerable have been oppressed by the rich and powerful, who abuse the laws for personal gain at the expense of everyone under them. In the summer of 2022, I embarked on my mission to expose them, to hold them accountable, to bring change. You may think you know what happened next, but you have been deceived. You have been told that I am responsible for murder, that new laws could protect you, that I am dead. You have been told many things, except the truth. Until now. What follows is a video record, so that you no longer have to rely on what you are told. No one escapes justice, not even me. I am no one, and this is my story.
Excellent, man. Very cool. That's amazing. Kari wants to know, is there a Reddit group dedicated to unraveling and putting in order of all of this? This is the most in-depth ARG that I've ever seen on this scale. Holy shit. Agreed, Kari. Very well said.
Well, thank you, Kari. I think there is some Reddit. There was a Reddit looking at this stuff. There's some stuff on Discord for sure. But honestly, part of why I'm showing all of this today is because I don't think very many people actually know about this book, much less all of the ancillary and ARG material that we made. I mean, again, this is one of those challenging parts about the industry and the market right now.
Yes.
You know, we announced this project, we announced the audio series, we announced Rachel Lee Cook and Patton Oswalt doing all of this with us. We announced all of that at the same time we announced, along with the announcement of the book itself. And, you know, I saw what the numbers were, and the numbers were the numbers. And a week later, after FOC, I went to the Comics Pro meeting in Pittsburgh, actually, where I then scouted a bunch of stuff for the project. And when I stood in front of the room of retailers, small, you know, however, I think it was about 100 retailers that were there, and explained the project and walked them through what we're doing. And I was like, and so we're actually making that as a scripted audio series with Rachel Lee Cook and Patton Oswalt. Basically, every head turned to the person next to them, saying like, "Whoa, did you know that's really? Did you hear about that?" And it was both really gratifying and a little bit of a bummer because it's like, oh man, like there's so much great stuff out there. It's so hard to keep track of everything. And I knew, I was like, this is going to fly under the radar. But the way we looked at it was ultimately, because we knew we were making the movie at the end of all of this, when we put out the trade paperback, that's going to be like the full version. That's going to be the version where it's like, we're going to treat this like it's the first time it's coming out, because this is going to be the book that like we make sure we integrate not only everything that we've made into it, because that's the other thing over the last year or so. When I do conventions and people bring up copies of No One to sign, I would say that about half of the people don't know that there is a podcast, like a scripted audio series.
Sure.
The other half that do know have not listened to it. So it's like, and there's a handful. Some people have. They've really taken that journey, which is great. I love it. And you don't have to either. Like, I know this is not going to be everyone's cup of tea.
Sure.
But I just want to make people aware of all this stuff, because if you do want to experience something that's like pretty different and really immersive, like this is going to be the one for you, I think.
I hear you, man. And again, this is why it is so exciting right now what's happening in audio drama that is adjacent to the comic world. And I'm so happy that these worlds are converging, because the material, the source material is great, and people like yourself are really upping the ante. And yeah, man, no, I am so with Kari on this. I can't believe the level of care and attention that you've put in this. And that's thrilling. And again, man, imagine what, and it's so interesting that you used, the guy that did that stuff for the last Matrix movie. Imagine if that stuff existed in the late 90s, early 2000s when the Matrix movies came out. Because even things like the Animatrix, so many fans of the movies never really bothered to see that series of animated cartoons. And it's like, oh, no. It's really going to make you appreciate the world. So, yeah, I hear you, man. And that's great that you...
If this stuff, if that technology existed in 2006, I mean, when I made the League... it's a superhero period film. So it's set in 1960s Chicago, and we shot in LA. And so not only are you trying to make it look like Chicago, but you're also trying to make it look like the 60s in Chicago. And the green screens alone, trying to do cityscapes and everything, I spent probably 6 months trying to figure out how to do photogrammetry from archival photos of the city, just to see if I could create a 3D environment that was close of the city back then. And by the way, no, the answer was no. And also the resources, like the computing power, none of that was possible or viable. I mean, the backgrounds in the League are the stuff that's the hardest to look at now, because they're so flat and it doesn't. So I see stuff like this and it's like, oh my God, like, what is possible now? It's so exciting, but like it's also I think we take it for granted in a lot of ways. But yeah, I mean, that's why I think that's the other thing, is like, that's why I get so excited and passionate about doing all this extra stuff, because in large part it's like I get to do the stuff that like we always wanted to do, but the technology was way, way, way too expensive and cumbersome compared to what it is now. And so I might not have the same level of kind of energy as I did 20 years ago, but or level of excitement in a lot of days, but I think I still have I have it when it counts and where it counts. So that's why we're
and the technology is making the heavy lifting a little easier. Yes. And I hear you, man. And truly, also, as you get older, that energy sapping thing that happens with time and age. I hear you, buddy. I just turned 60, and I feel you. I absolutely feel you. And I still have the enthusiasm, but no, man, I'm not the guy I was 20 years ago. I'm definitely not. And it's like, all right, but I'm working on it. And I'm as I was telling Callie off the air, I've had a couple of health issues last year, but everything's going fine. And and also again, May 10th is the official Word Balloon 20th anniversary, and I'm not slowing down. I'm thrilled that we got to this point, and it's great. And it's because of friends like you that come back and tell these amazing stories. So no,
well,
thank you for helping me.
Dude, vice versa, man. Like, I mean, we've known each other for really since I started in 2008, and you were always one of the things that's so amazing about John, for anyone who hasn't met him in person or seen him in person at a show or out at a shop or anywhere like that. You love this stuff so much and the medium so much, but also the creators and the craft so much that, like, one of the things, I don't think I've ever told you this, but like, you treated me as an early 20s kid trying to do this. You treated me the same way that I heard you talk and treat Bendis. And it's just like that. It means so much, especially when you're starting out and coming up, for that. Even any little bit of validation and encouragement is like, you know, it's like crack, man. Like, you get hooked. Like, it just and it speeds you up, I guess. I don't know. This analogy is falling apart.
But it enriches you, because Kyle, it happened with me with radio pros. Here's a name from the past that I knew as a kid, Dave Baum, the great talk host. And he started in news talk and everything. And then he was a weekend host at The Score when we were getting started. And he treated me like a peer. And it meant so much to me. And subsequent years later, always was a great sounding board. And I mean, I always say, and I always give it up to him, Mike Waringo, when I was getting started with Word Balloon, was like one of the first A-list pros that is like, I love what you're doing. And I'm like, tell me what I'm doing right. Tell me what I'm doing wrong, because I don't want to half-ass this. And also, I've always felt that comic creators deserve the same respect and treatment that we give to filmmakers and now television showrunners and these creatives that make these incredible bodies of work. And it's like, well, they've been doing it in the comics for, 90 years now. And I was thrilled when I got to interview Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams, my friend Marty Pascal, who's no longer with us. All you got, Paul Kupperberg, who thankfully is still with us and a great guy. And yeah, man, it's like, what makes you guys tick? How do you guys come up with this stuff? And truly, the innovations that have happened with the newer generations. Again, I remember Kirkman telling me, "Hey, man, I got this great idea for a zombie comic," and I'm like, "Yeah, whatever, Robert. Good luck with it." And then it becomes The Walking Dead, and it becomes what it is, and then same with Invincible. And so, no, it's great to be. I never say I'm in comics; I cover comics, and it's great to be there with a ringside seat, watching it all evolve and innovate.
Well, and we are incredibly appreciative of it, John. Like, just so you know, like, because there are, everyone has a podcast now, but
you're not wrong.
It's not the same. And also, like, you're the gold standard, and you've been doing it for so long. And there's such few, I feel like there are such few really valid outlets anymore that you can really talk about comics on, and people don't know where to go to read about, to dissect, to discuss, to hear creators discuss comics in a kind of central way. Like, things are so kind of fractured and broken, and every time I feel like there's a site that I like, it ends up getting bought and gutted, and
yes.
So it's like, the fact that you're still doing it, like you're doing, I'm not a religious person, but if there is a Lord, you're doing his work, and for this medium, and
Thanks,
yeah,
buddy.
I mean, you got it.
Well,
but when you record this 20th in May, like, I better get a StreamYard link, because I want to come on for a few minutes at least.
Oh, maybe that's what we should do. During COVID, the Benson sisters and Tom King said we ought to do John Con, because we can't go to a convention. So let's do a convention on Word Balloon. And we did this 4.5-hour show, and people kept dropping in. And it was so great. It was my first conversations with Liam Sharp and Chris Cantwell and Vita Ayala and all these people, these newbies that are friends with Julie and Shauna and Tom. And I'm like, great. They're like, just show up, man. We're booking this for you. We're doing it. I'm like, okay. And it was great. And it was a lot of fun. And yeah, maybe that's the way to celebrate the 20th anniversary. So there you go. Well, like I said, just keep me in mind whether you want me to do me, or I can do a decent Walter Cronkite if you ever want to, when your energy gets to the point and you want to do more with COWL and do more media with COWL and stuff, I am available and looking forward to it, because as much as I appreciate everything you're doing now with the Massiveverse, COWL spoke to me immediately. And Rod, like I said earlier, if Rod's still watching, don't worry, I'll be in touch and we'll set up a new talk. So that's great. But no, way to go, Kyle. I mean, truly, is there anything else you want to cover before we wrap up?
I think probably the only other thing to touch on, so in the Massiveverse, just I guess to wrap and close that up. So the other book that is going to be coming back in March with issue number 25, big new jumping on point, is Rogue Sun. That's kind of like, if Radiant Black is 1A, Rogue Sun is 1B. Like they're the two kind of core, titles, ongoing series titles in the universe. And so that's it's Ryan Parrott and Abel, with colors by Natalia Marquez. It's like I like to describe it as like it's like a supernatural Batman Beyond, but with like a shitty dead dad who haunts the suit. And it's like if the kid who inherits it, he's like a Flash Thompson. Like you literally meet him as he's stuffing another kid into a locker. He's a bully at school. And so he is not only trying to figure out how to be a superhero and protect New Orleans from the supernatural, but also how to become a better person while having to actually make amends with, or some sort of relationship with, the ghost of his estranged father who left him when he was very young. So there's a lot of anger and resentment there already. And it's all set in New Orleans. So it's this gothic supernatural superhero book. Ryan also really pushes the boundaries on the medium. Without spoiling anything, by the end of the first arc, the way things land and what that relationship with the ghost of his father is, starting with arc 2, Dylan's really on his own, and now he's making decisions entirely on his own. So the first issue of that arc, Ryan actually wrote the book. We did the book as a true choose your own adventure comic.
Oh, fun.
So the character Rogue Sun ends up fighting a new villain named Ornate, who is like a time loop villain. And so Dylan keeps getting stuck in these time loops. And the book is actually a true choose your own adventure. And so it's putting the readers in the shoes of Dylan, right as Dylan has to start making choices that matter. The readers are doing it right alongside him. So things like that. We're going to be kicking off the next era with actually there's a new Rogue Sun coming into the book. It's Dylan's half-sister, Ari, who has been a hot and cold character towards Dylan over the course of the first 24 issues. In a lot of ways, the mantle should have been left to her, but it wasn't, for reasons including what you learn earlier in the run is that Marcus Bell leaves the mantle to Dylan because he doesn't want to put the kids he loves at risk.
Ooh.
And so there's a lot of
interesting.
It's a book navigating a broken family and being a child of divorce, and it's great. It's great. It's one of my favorite things we do. That, like I said, comes back with issue 25. With issue 26, that is the same month as Radiant Black 33, and there might be a little cool connection between those two that we're not quite ready to talk about, but we will very soon. And then coming up the next month in April, we have Supermassive Volume 1, which is the first time we have collected our once-a-year 50-page done-in-one one-shot team-up specials. So what I mean by that is it's actually something we really pride ourselves on with the Massiveverse. And again, big credit to Michael being the North Star from day one on this. We want every book to be incredibly accessible. So we design each book to be entirely its own thing. We don't want any of the books to rely on any of the other books from a world building standpoint. So like we don't want the Spawn, the Al Simmons, and what's his name? We don't want the Al Simmons and Chapel problem, where Al Simmons was actually originally in Spawn #1. It was Chapel from Youngblood who.
I know it was a Liefeld creation. Yeah, it was definitely
one of Rob's characters. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then over the years, like, I'm not sure. I don't know that Rob actually has control of those characters anymore. He might. I might be totally wrong here.
Yeah, I don't know either. Actually, that's a good question for him. Yeah.
But the only reason I mention it is because it makes it complicated if suddenly it's like, okay, that's a foundational moment to the origin of your character of Spawn, but it's using a character that you don't actually have the full rights on, I would assume. And so we basically wanted to make sure that everyone's setting up their book in their own way. So my whole thing was like, everyone take a different city. So like Radiant Black is set in Chicago and Northwest Indiana. Rogue Sun is set in New Orleans. No One is set in Pittsburgh. The Dead Lucky is set out in San Francisco. Infernal Girl Red's actually in a different universe, but she comes over because that's part of her power and she can hop between. And so once a year, though, we do a 50-page one-shot called Supermassive, where the characters all meet and cross over and do an adventure together, and it's a done-in-one story. If you've read the books, the other titles, that Supermassive will be additive to all of the characters, not only their status quos, but their arcs that they're going through. But if you haven't read any of the books or some of the books, you'll learn everything you need to know in that single comic. So the book ends up being additive, but not necessary. With the exception of the last Supermassive, which is actually part of the Catalyst War. It takes place during the Catalyst War. So we actually did collect it in Volume 6 of Radiant Black, and it's pretty integral. But we've never collected these as one thing before. So in April, we're putting that out as a trade paperback. I'm targeting May for the Radiant Black audiobook. Don't hold me to that, but
I hear you, buddy.
I can confirm that, I will. And then coming up after that will be the return of Infernal Girl Red. So Infernal Girl Red Book 2. Infernal Girl Red is our YA. It's our YA tokusatsu superhero series. It's like British boarding school drama mixed with like magical girl, Sailor Moon, transforming, bombastic action. It all looks like Studio Trigger worked on it, the amazing Japanese anime studio. And it's about this character who has this magical dragon bracelet that allows her to transform and trying to protect. It's actually a multiversal bracelet, so it travels between universes to people in times of need and big moments of need. And it's powered by self-belief. And this young girl, Cassie Acosta, is very practical and pragmatic. And based on her upbringing and her life to this point and the challenges she's faced, she doesn't have a lot of that in her. And so it becomes this story about not only needing and how to believe in yourself, but the power of hope. And it's by Matt Groom and Erica D'Urso, colored by Igor Monti. Book 1 was an OGN that we then serialized actually as like 40-page floppies. But that was a Kickstarter we originally did, and Book 1 came out 2 years ago. Book 2, we've actually just finished it. So we are getting that printed right now for Kickstarter backers as a big, awesome hardcover. And then we'll have an announcement on when the Book 2 will start serializing with stores and then ultimately come out in softcover as well. So those are the big ones coming up here. And like I said, when I describe it as the rebuild era, that's really, we really mean it. Like we're trying to make everything, again, super accessible, but also continue to kind of push the boundaries on what this stuff can be and what the storytelling can be. And we've got a lot of big surprises coming up this year on that front. And then I think the only other thing to mention, because it's ongoing, is I also do a book with Kid Cudi, the Grammy Award-winning hip-hop recording artist / actor / fashion designer, etc. It's called Moon Man, and Volume 1 just came out in November. I like to describe it as kind of like it's like Black Miracle Man for 2024, 2025,
okay,
where you're introducing power into the world, a world that is very much right now this kind of late stage capitalist society run by mega conglomerates that are only interested in owning for the sake of being able to control and own.
Yep.
And as you introduce power into the world, watching how the world changes or responds, and what that's going to look like. So Scott Mescudi, who is Kid Cudi, Scott has been referencing in his music going all the way back to Man on the Moon, his first album, which, by the way, I don't know if you know this, the album art to that, drawn by Bill Sienkiewicz. So dating all the way back to there, he's been referencing, the Moon Man in all of his music. And so when we launched Radiant Black, he and his, at the time, president of his production company, Mad Solar, Karina Manishill, reached out to me asking if I'd take a meeting about building out this original, superhero with Scott. And so that became this awesome collaboration over the last few years.
Wow.
He's been dropping new music with new issues, and so Volume 1's out. Issue 6 that just kind of kicked things off, a 2-part flashback issue to the event that happened where the powers come from. That just came out. Issue 7 will be coming out after that. But yeah, that's a lot of stuff going on. But those are the highlights right now, I would say.
There you go, man. And it all starts with Radiant Black's Rebuild, which is coming at the end of February from Image Comics. Right now, you might find at your LCS the freebie story so far, Radiant Black, 12-page recap of the first 6 volumes. And as Kyle has said, man, with QR codes in that, you can get the first 6 volumes of Radiant Black and a lot of other Massive verse books at a very nice discount. Yeah. So check all that out. And once again, here, I'll put up the banner again to remind people, Radiant Black Ketchup, stand by. There it is for the video audience, radiant.black/ketchup. There is no .com. All you need to put in is radiant.black/ketchup, the word catch up as one word. And that's not the condiment. That is just ketchup. But yeah, man, it's
and you can
it'll help you out.
If you want to learn more about like any of the stuff we do, like we did a big jazz book last year, Deep Cuts. We did a big graphic novel with Bear McCreary that is connected to his original concept album, this heavy metal, just epic thing he did. It's called The Singularity. Like, you can just go to it's blackmarket.la, like Los Angeles, LA, blackmarket.la. You can see more about all the books, find out more about the Massiveverse. We're going to have a new Massiveverse site up and running pretty soon at massive-verse.com. But right now you can actually read about the Massiveverse on, there we go, thank you, blackmarket.la. And I would encourage everybody, especially in this age of social media being what it currently is and has become, and probably not going to get any better. If any of this stuff sounds cool, we have a newsletter that I write called our Black Market newsletter. So if you go to blackmarket.la, you can sign up for the newsletter there. It's also where we do announcements and news and behind the scenes stuff. We're going to be doing more and more this year, and like really cool access stuff as well. But we also drop like really cool like limited edition stuff there. So we'll like do like that issue of Radiant Black, the accordion fold out. We sold that through the newsletter. So if you're signed up for the newsletter, you get the notification when we do a drop like that. In that case, it was like only 200 copies. We'll do rare foil variants, same thing, like only a couple hundred copies. We did a version of the Radiant Black hardcover that just came out, the Massive Edition hardcover, with a signed book plate, signed and numbered by myself and Marcelo Costa. And it had a gorgeous custom or limited dust jacket done by Goni Montez. And it's the same style as the Power Ranger hardcovers that I did and Boom has continued on with, where they're holding the helmet. But in this case, it's Radiant Black holding a black hole in the shape of a helmet, and the accretion disk around the black hole is creating, the shape of the helmet as well as like the energy eyes and things like that. It's very cool. So, so that's a good spot to grab all that kind of cool stuff. So.
That's great. Well, as Kari says, this is going to be a rabbit hole that I will be buried in for the rest of my life. Thank you. That's great. Higgins, way to go, man. Seriously, that's fantastic.
Thanks, man.
I think back to when we first met each other. And by the way, I'm so glad that your parents were in Radiant Black and have been in Radiant Black over the years, because we had a very lovely dinner with us and your parents and Olivier Coipel. And that always meant a lot to me that you included me in that fantastic dinner. And so I know how sweet your parents are and stuff. And it's
Joe
that's
Clark
great. I
was
hope they're
there.
doing well. Joe Clark.
What was the pizza place? It closed down. We loved it.
Oh God, maybe Bacino's? I don't even know.
No,
I'm not. Yeah, I don't remember. God, Kyle, there are so many great pizza joints. So I don't know, but yeah. It's so funny on Facebook. There's a whole contingent of Chicagoans, and maybe you're aware of it already too, that out of towners just think, oh yeah, Chicago stuffed pizza. No. We've been doing thick crust pizza. My dad had a place in 1950. And I know that thin crust pizza in Chicago preceded my father's place. And it's like, now you people don't realize, when we want pizza in Chicago, we get good, what they call tavern-style pizza. But it's like, that's Chicago pizza.
You know that a villain in issue 13 of Radiant Black, a villain blew up Vito and Nix, right?
Oh, no!
in Cicero, or on Cicero? Yeah. Yeah, and we named it Pizza Pete. But,
oh my God! There's a Pete's Pizza down the street from me that sells good tavern style pizza.
Oh no! Actually, Pizza Pete's a real place. That my mom grew up loving Pizza Pete in Orland Park. We call it. I think we called it Uncle Pete's.
Okay.
Something like that. But if you hear we're gonna be running a bunch of the old Radiant Black like audio stuff that we've done in the short films like over the coming weeks. So we're going to actually put out those radio ads. So you'll hear Will Friedle recording for Uncle Pete's Pizza and Brush and
the manscaping.
Carb.
Yeah, that's
manscaping exactly.
Okay.
So so basically it'll be Word Balloon listeners who are the first in the know. If you hear this stuff, you'll be the only ones who understand what it actually is.
Is the league on YouTube at all, or? Oh, great! And it's what's that channel where people can find that stuff?
Yeah. So if you you can actually get it through blackmarket.la on the COWL page that's there. But we do have a YouTube. The YouTube is it's youtube.com/@Masiveverse, one word, and all of our stuff up until recently that was actually a Black Market Narrative YouTube, but we've actually changed our socials and not on Instagram, Facebook, and also on YouTube as being it's all Masiveverse basically. And like the Black Market stuff is more professional facing, and this stuff is more about building community and fans around not only the books and the universe, but all the extra content we're doing. So you can see the league on the Masiveverse YouTube. And actually, just to plug it real quick, I don't know when this episode goes up audio-wise, but for those who watch the
tomorrow,
video, I'm actually doing. Oh, great! I'm actually doing another live stream Thursday night, and it's with the Radiant Black creative team, and I'm hosting it and everything through the Masiveverse YouTube. And literally, the title of the video is "Radiant Black Creators Spill Secrets." And so it's going to be all of us talking about a little bit in more depth about the rebuild, about Radiant Black rebuild, some of the big exciting things we're doing this year. We're going to show off early art. We're going to show off some covers. We're going to talk about some of the crazy stuff coming up. And that'll be Thursday night at 6 o'clock Pacific time. So 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. And it's you can see it at the Masiveverse YouTube. I think it's also going to stream to the Image Comics YouTube at the same time. I think that's what we're going to do.
That sounds
but again, just trying to get the word out. So if 2.5 hours of me rambling wasn't enough for you, give it just over 24 hours or 48 hours, and you can get at least another hour fix.
Honestly, Kyle, it is this extra stuff that you're doing that I think makes the Massive universe really, really special, and a reason for people to jump in and take advantage of this moment of rebuilding that starts at the end of February. But again, yeah, everybody, so check that out on Thursday night, 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern. I don't know what it's going to be Australian time, but I'm sure everyone from Australia is going to be there. So that's great. Way to go, man. Excellent job.
Thanks,
and seriously, thank you for staying in touch and coming back, because it does. It means a lot.
Thanks for having me. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, we'll talk soon, and I will see you in May for sure. Well, I'll see you at C2E2 first.
I'll see you at C2E2, definitely, man. All right, thanks everybody for watching. Tomorrow night, Alex Segura will be joining me live. I got and shout out to our friends in LA that have been impacted by the fires. Our thoughts are with you. And really, I've checked in with a lot of my friends that have been impacted, and those that are near enough that they see the fire and everything, which is just shocking. And all the best, and we really hope that situation gets contained as quickly as possible. But that's kind of one of the reasons why, beyond last Monday when I did my conversation with Riley Brown, a lot of planned conversations didn't happen, because these people are dealing with the catastrophes that are happening in their area right now. I hope to be talking to Mark Wade on Thursday night. We were supposed to talk. He is safe, but I know he's helping friends that have been impacted by this. So all the best, and that's why. But no, we got 3 new Word Balloon Lives, including tonight's great conversation with Kyle. So that's what's happening this week here at Word Balloon. So until next time, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.